What if every day didn't start with stress, confusion, or chaos, but with calm, strength, and clarity? What if before the world could reach you with noise, you had already told yourself the truth that no one else could give you? That's the power of a daily Stoic mindset. It doesn't wait for motivation. It builds it. It doesn't beg for peace. It creates it. But let's be honest. How many mornings have you started with anxiety instead of purpose? How often have you opened your eyes and already felt behind, reacting to everything, emails, messages, problems, before even brushing your teeth? This isn't just about feeling better. It's about building a life that's unshakable from the moment you wake up. Stoicism is not a theory. It's a habit. And that habit begins with what you tell yourself every single morning. Because the words you say in silence become the blueprint for how you face the world. Today, you'll discover 12 simple but powerful truths to speak to yourself every day. They are not fluffy affirmations. They are mental armor. They are reminders of what really matters and what you must never forget. So get ready, because once these words live inside you, your days will look different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Before we begin, I want you to do something powerful. Write this in the comments. Starting today, I speak truth to my mind. I am Stoic. That's not just a sentence. That's you planting the flag. That's you claiming your identity, not as someone who reacts, but as someone who chooses, someone who leads. Say it once, say it out loud, then say it in your heart every morning, because once you do, the world loses its grip and your mind becomes your greatest ally. Now let's begin. Number 1. Today I practice the art of non-response. Most people think strength means speaking up, jumping in, fighting back. But real strength, the kind that lasts, is quiet. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. It doesn't need a stage. It just is. Every morning, remind yourself, you don't have to answer everything. You don't have to react to every comment, every insult, every opinion that crosses your path. That's not your job. There's a strange kind of pressure today to always say something, to reply, to defend, to prove. But the Stoic wakes up and chooses something rarer: silence, stillness, space. Why? Because true power lies not in reacting, but in deciding when to act and when not to. Just think about how much energy is lost every day over things that don't matter. A rude driver, a critical comment, a message that rubs you the wrong way. Your mind gets pulled into battles that leave you tired, anxious, or angry. But what if you didn't step into those battles at all? What if you let them pass by like clouds? You don't owe the world your reaction. You don't have to comment on every wrong thing you see. You don't have to explain yourself to people who aren't really listening. Your peace is not public property. It's your job to protect it. And one of the most powerful ways to protect it is through non-response. This doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean you're avoiding life. It means you're choosing what deserves your attention. It means you are rising above the noise. The Stoic doesn't get pulled into every storm. He becomes the calm in the storm. When someone insults him, he doesn't rush to defend his name, because he knows his character is not defined by someone else's anger. When someone tries to provoke him, he doesn't take the bait, because he understands most provocations are invitations to chaos. Decline the invitation. Ask yourself, how much peace have I lost by reacting to things that didn't matter in the long run? How many times have I fed a fire just because I felt I had to say something? Every morning, look in the mirror and say this: I am not obligated to react. Say it again. Let it sink in. I am not obligated to react. Because that's where your freedom lives. Not in doing more, but in doing less with purpose. Even Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire, understood the importance of restraint. He wrote about it in his journal almost daily. He knew the power of pausing, the power of letting things be, the power of refusing to be pulled into every emotional current that came his way. You're not on this earth to fight every fight. You're here to choose your battles with wisdom. And that wisdom begins in the morning when your mind is clear. So before the noise of the world reaches you, make a decision. Tell yourself, today I will respond only when it serves my values. I will not react just to feed my ego. It will feel strange at first. People might expect a reaction. They might push harder. But eventually they'll understand. You're not easily moved. You're grounded. And that kind of presence, it's rare, it's powerful, and it starts with one simple habit: non-response. So the next time someone tests your patience, remember, you don't need to explain, argue, or correct. You can simply breathe, pause, walk away, keep your peace. Because silence, when chosen with strength, is not empty. It's full of power. Number 2, I am not owed clarity, closure, or comfort. Let's tell the truth that most people avoid. Life doesn't owe anyone an explanation. Not for why something happened, not for why someone left, not for why the future feels unclear. And yet, most suffering begins right there, in the demand for answers that may never come. You wake up some days and the mind is already searching. Why did that person hurt me? Why didn't that plan work out? Why do I feel stuck, confused, or off track? The problem is not the question. The problem is believing you must have an answer to move forward. But the Stoic thinks differently. The Stoic rises each morning knowing this. The path doesn't need to be well lit for me to walk it. The fog may cover the road, the sky may stay grey, and the story may never finish its sentence. And that's okay. Why? Because clarity is not a requirement for courage. Most people wait. They wait for closure to heal. They wait for comfort to act. They wait for certainty before they choose. But that waiting turns into wasting. Wasting time, wasting peace, wasting life. The Stoic does not wait. The Stoic walks forward, even in mystery. Every morning, remind yourself, I walk through fog without complaint. That one sentence can change how you carry everything. It shifts your energy from needing control to choosing flow. You don't chase explanation, you stand in experience. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to understand things that simply won't make sense. Why someone betrayed you, why life was unfair, why you didn't get the result you worked for. The answers may never come, and even if they did, would they change anything? Would they truly give peace? Or would they just feed the mind's hunger for neatness? You're not here to be fed stories. You're here to build strength. And strength doesn't grow from ease. It grows from walking into the unknown and staying calm when it stays unknown. That's what makes the Stoic rare. While others demand comfort, the Stoic prepares for discomfort. While others demand closure, the Stoic finds peace in open endings. While others panic in uncertainty, the Stoic breathes deeper and takes the next step. You don't need the full picture to paint today. You don't need a conclusion to write your next sentence. Life is not a solved puzzle. It's a journey through shifting weather. Sometimes the sun shines, sometimes it doesn't. But you walk either way. Every morning repeat this truth to yourself. I am not owed clarity, closure, or comfort. Say it again. Let your nervous system hear it. Let your expectations loosen. Let your grip on the uncontrollable relax. Because peace does not come from having the answers. Peace comes from stopping the demand for them. And if you need proof that this mindset works, look at the lives of the Stoic masters. Epictetus was born into slavery, stripped of freedom, family, and security. He did not wait for comfort to begin living wisely. He used discomfort as a classroom. He did not wait for life to make sense. He made sense of himself. That's the invitation here. Not to like the fog, but to move anyway. Not to reject the pain, but to learn from it. Not to need comfort, but to create courage. So when the day feels unclear, don't fight it. Don't freeze. And don't fall into the trap of thinking you've lost your way. You haven't. The path is still there. You just can't see the full map. And that's normal, because the Stoic doesn't need a map to keep walking. He doesn't need an explanation to keep choosing. He doesn't need life to make sense in order to make progress. So write this in your soul: I am strong enough to live with mystery, and let that strength carry you through whatever the day brings, with quiet confidence and with peace that no answer could ever give. Number 3. This moment is already enough. Before the rush begins, before the world tells you to run faster, earn more, prove something, stop. Take one breath, just one, and notice this. You are already here. You are already breathing. You are already alive. That alone is enough. But that's not how most people live. From the second they wake up, there's a silent panic. I need to catch up. I need to fix everything. I need to become something more. And so they start their day in a place of lack, as if today is just a race to fill a hole that was never supposed to be there. The Stoic lives differently. He doesn't begin with emptiness. He begins with sufficiency. Not because everything is perfect, not because life has no struggle, but because this moment, right now, is a gift, and it's whole. Even if it hurts, even if it's quiet, even if it's not what was expected. Most affirmations are about becoming stronger, becoming happier, becoming successful. And that's fine. But Stoicism asks a harder, deeper question. Before all that, can you honor what already is? When you wake up, try this. Instead of rushing into thoughts of what's missing, pause and say, this moment is already enough. Say it even if you don't believe it at first. Let it echo in your mind. Let it remind you that you don't need to chase your worth today. You just need to start with it. The world will tempt you to want more. That's how it keeps your attention. A better phone, a better body, a better version of yourself that always seems just out of reach. But the Stoic isn't hypnotized by that. He doesn't crave more just to escape the now. He asks, what if I want differently instead? Not less, not nothing, just differently. Not out of fear, not out of shame, not out of comparison, but out of alignment. Look at a single breath, not the one that just passed, not the one that's coming, just the one you're taking now. You didn't earn it. You didn't chase it. You didn't control it. And yet, it arrived. That's the kind of peace Stoicism invites you to see. That this breath, this sky, even this pain, it can be enough. And when you start the day like that, something amazing happens. Your actions don't come from desperation. They come from clarity. You don't chase success to feel whole. You build things because you're already whole. You don't need validation to move. You move because movement is natural. This is not about becoming passive. It's about becoming present. It's about building from peace, not anxiety. About growing from stillness, not noise. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who had everything, still reminded himself daily to be content with the present. He knew that the mind always wants to live in either yesterday's regret or tomorrow's fear. But the Stoic trains his mind to return to now, not because it's easy, but because now is the only thing that truly exists. So tomorrow morning, when your alarm rings, don't begin with a checklist. Don't open your phone. Don't measure your value by the day's goals. Instead, sit up, take a breath, and whisper to yourself, I begin with fullness, not lack. This moment is already enough. Let your morning rise from that truth, and let everything else, your actions, your growth, your ambition, become an addition to peace, not a desperate reach for it, because peace doesn't come after the day is done. It begins the moment you choose to say, right now, as I am, with what I have, is already enough. Number 4, I don't control the wave, I surf it. Every day brings something new. Some days feel smooth, others slam into you like a storm you didn't see coming. And here's the truth that most people spend their whole lives resisting. You don't control the wave. You can't control the weather, the traffic, the moods of others, or the unexpected twists that show up without warning. But the Stoic doesn't fight that. The Stoic doesn't yell at the wind. He doesn't curse the sea. He does something much wiser. He learns how to surf. The need to control everything is the fastest way to feel defeated. When life doesn't go as planned, control says, this isn't fair. Control says, fix it, force it, make it obey. But Stoicism offers a softer, stronger way. It says, let go, adapt, flow. You wake up and the day already has a shape of its own. You can fight it, or you can move with it. One brings stress, the other brings strength. Tell yourself each morning, my job is not to freeze the ocean, my job is to ride the wave. And what a freeing thought that is. You don't need the world to cooperate in order to be okay. You don't need every moment to be smooth in order to stay steady. Control feels powerful, but it's often a trap. It creates tightness, fear, perfectionism. You hold your breath, trying to hold it all together. But surfing is different. It's movement, it's balance, it's trust. You respond to what is, not what you wish it was. Think about the ocean. It's alive. It changes every second. Just like life. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's wild. But always it moves. And the Stoic? He doesn't fight the movement. He rides with poise. The Stoic understands that reality isn't personal. A storm doesn't mean punishment. A calm day isn't a reward. Both are just waves. And the goal is not to judge the wave. It's to ride it without drowning in fear or ego. Let this truth shape your mornings. Power is not in domination. It's in adaptation. That means when plans shift, you shift too. When someone disappoints you, you don't break. You bend. When the unexpected shows up, you don't panic, you adjust. That's real strength. Not forcing life to fit your mold, but shaping yourself to meet life as it is. Epictetus, who lost his freedom but kept his peace, said it best. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. That's what surfing the wave means. Responding, not reacting. Riding, not resisting. So before the day starts pulling you in every direction, stop and remind yourself, I don't need to control this day. I need to meet it with skill, like a surfer who trusts his balance more than he fears the tide. You will fall sometimes. That's part of the wave. But falling doesn't mean failure. It means you're learning, getting stronger, more agile, more present. And when you fall, you don't quit. You reset. You paddle back out. Because the Stoic doesn't crumble in chaos. He moves through it with presence. So tomorrow, when the unexpected happens, and it will, don't tense up. Don't resist. Breathe. Feel the wave and ride. Because you weren't born to control the ocean. You were born to surf it. Number 5. I owe the world nothing but my alignment. You were not born to explain yourself to everyone. You are not built to carry the weight of every opinion, expectation, or assumption. And yet, how often do people wake up and immediately start doing exactly that? Bending, explaining, pleasing, apologizing for simply existing. The Stoic sees through this. He knows that life is not about pleasing crowds or gaining approval. Life is about alignment, not with everyone else, but with yourself, with truth, with reason, with inner clarity. Each morning, most people silently ask, who do I need to impress today? But the Stoic asks a better question, what values do I need to live today? That one shift, from seeking approval to living by principle, is the difference between peace and pressure, between power and performance. You do not owe the world your energy. You owe it your integrity. That means you don't need to explain every decision to someone who misunderstands you. You don't need to sacrifice your peace just to make someone else more comfortable. You don't need to bend every time the social wind changes direction. You just need to stay in alignment with what matters, with who you are when no one's watching, with the truth that doesn't change, even when people do. When you wake up, remind yourself, I align with reason, not reaction. That's your compass, not gossip, not judgment, not outside noise, just reason, just virtue, just clarity. Because the moment you start reacting to everything, you lose your center. You become scattered. You chase validation instead of embodying values. And that's not strength, it's exhaustion. But when you choose alignment, you walk differently. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need applause to know you're doing the right thing. Let your integrity speak louder than your words. Think about it. How many times have you shrunk your truth just to avoid being misunderstood? How many times have you said yes when you meant no, just to keep the peace? That kind of peace is fake, and it costs too much. The Stoic doesn't pay that price. He knows that true peace comes not from saying the right thing to others, but from saying the right thing to himself. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he didn't let public opinion shape his values. He wrote to himself daily, reminding his mind to stay firm, to stay calm, to stay in line with reason, even when surrounded by chaos and noise. That's your example. That's your path. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, to defend, to chase someone's approval, pause, take a breath. Ask, am I aligned right now, or am I reacting? And if the answer is reaction, realign. Quietly, firmly, without guilt. Because you don't owe the world your performance, you owe it your presence. And presence, when rooted in truth, is unshakable. So every morning, repeat this. I owe the world nothing but my alignment. And let that be enough. Let that be your strength. Let that carry you through every decision, every conversation, every moment. Because the world doesn't need more people who are liked. It needs more people who are anchored. Number 6. I prepare for loss without inviting it. Most people live as if things will always stay the same, that loved ones will always be around, that money, health, time will never run out. And then, when something is taken away, it feels like the ground vanishes beneath their feet. Shock, pain, collapse. All because they believed what they had was permanent. The Stoic sees it differently. The Stoic wakes up with a quiet awareness. Everything I have is borrowed, not in a bitter way, not in fear, but in deep appreciation. Because when you accept that things are temporary, you stop clinging and you start living. There's a phrase in Stoicism, memento mori. Remember, you must die. Some hear that and think it's dark, morbid, but they miss the point. It's not about fear, it's about freedom. It's about walking into each day knowing that nothing is promised, not tomorrow, not even this afternoon. And from that truth comes a strange and powerful clarity. You don't have time to waste love, energy, or gratitude. The Stoic does not live in fear of loss, but he also doesn't ignore it. He prepares his heart, not to expect suffering, but to remain unbroken when it comes, because it will come. Loss is part of life, and preparation is not pessimism, it's wisdom. Each morning, remind yourself, I am strong enough to lose and grateful enough to still love. Let those words settle into your bones, because when you can say them with honesty, you begin to build a life that is not fragile, but anti-fragile. A life that doesn't break when shaken, but becomes stronger from the shaking. That's the goal, not to be untouched by grief, but to be unmoved by the fear of grief. You've already survived things you thought would destroy you. You've already faced endings you didn't ask for. And yet, here you are, breathing, growing, becoming wiser. So what makes you think the next loss will be any different? You'll face it, you'll feel it, but it won't destroy you. Because the Stoic doesn't avoid pain, he trains for it, quietly, daily, not with paranoia, but with presence. He looks at his loved ones and holds them closer, not tighter. He spends his time on what matters, not what distracts. He doesn't take joy for granted. He lets it fill him fully, knowing that it's a guest, not a guarantee. Seneca wrote that we suffer more when loss catches us by surprise. The solution? Don't be surprised. Be ready. Be clear. Be anchored. And that readiness changes how you love. It doesn't make you colder. It makes you warmer. It makes you more patient, more kind. Because you know, this moment might not come again. So instead of wasting it on ego, on arguments, on delay, you pour yourself into it, fully. That's what makes Stoic love different. It's not needy, it's not grasping, it's grateful. So tomorrow, when you open your eyes, don't just chase what's next. Pause. Look around. Say thank you for what is. And then remind yourself, I prepare for loss, not to live in fear, but to live in fullness. Because when you know everything is temporary, everything becomes sacred. Not in theory, but in action. That is the gift of memento mori. Not death, but depth. Not dread, but presence. Not sadness, but strength. Number 7. I am not my urges. I am their observer. There's a moment, quiet, often missed, between feeling and reacting. Most people skip over it. They get angry and lash out. They feel desire and chase it. They sense fear and retreat. They never pause to ask, is this emotion me or just passing through me? But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic sees the space. He doesn't fuse with the feeling. He watches it, studies it, lets it rise, lets it fall. Because he knows, I am not my urges. I am the one observing them. This one shift, this simple moment of pause, is where all your power lives. It's where choice lives. It's where freedom begins. You are not your anger. You are not your cravings. You are not your anxiety, your jealousy, your pride, your sadness. You are the sky. Those things, they're just weather, temporary, moving, shifting, passing through. But most people never realize this. They get swept away by the storm and call it identity. I'm just an angry person. I'm too weak to resist. This is just who I am. No, it's not. That's just weather, and it doesn't define the sky. When you wake up, anchor yourself with this truth. I am not fused with my emotions. I am the one watching them float by. Picture your mind like a river. Thoughts, impulses, feelings, they're leaves floating on the surface. You don't have to grab every leaf. You don't have to jump into the river and drown in it. You can stand on the shore. You can watch. You can choose. That's what makes a Stoic powerful, not because they feel less, but because they react less. They see the craving rise, and instead of following it blindly, they examine it. Why do I want this? What happens if I don't act? They feel anger, and instead of exploding, they reflect, what's behind this feeling? Is it worth my peace? They feel fear, and instead of running, they ask, what am I afraid of losing? What story am I telling myself? This is what separates a master of the mind from a slave to the moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this constantly. He didn't pretend emotions didn't exist. He acknowledged them, and then chose reason over impulse. That's the practice. That's the path. So, in the heat of a moment, try saying this to yourself. This feeling is passing through me. I don't have to follow it. Say it when you're frustrated, when you're tempted, when you're overwhelmed. Even 1 second of separation is enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to reflect. Enough to choose something better. Because when you're not fused with your urges, you gain something rare. Command over your life. And this is what Stoicism is about. Not suppressing feelings, but understanding them. Not ignoring emotions, but mastering your relationship to them. When you practice this daily, emotions lose their power to control you. Anger might still show up, but you'll see it coming. Desire might knock, but you won't automatically open the door. You become still inside, a witness, not a puppet. So tomorrow morning, before the day pulls you in every direction, repeat this quietly to yourself. I am not my urges. I am their observer. Then carry that clarity with you into every conversation, every temptation, every challenge. Because you were never meant to be driven by impulse. You were meant to guide it. And that's exactly what you're learning to do. One morning, one breath, one choice at a time. Number 8. I choose value over validation. The world is loud with opinions, social media, friends, family, strangers, all offering their applause or their disapproval. And it's tempting, so tempting, to live for that applause, to shape your day around approval, to build your actions around being liked, being accepted, being seen. But the Stoic doesn't chase validation. The Stoic chases value. That's the quiet truth most never discover. Validation feels good for a moment, but it disappears quickly. And when you live for it, you end up performing, not living. Ask yourself this. How many times have you done something just to be praised for it? How many times have you hesitated, held back, or changed your direction, not because it was wrong, but because it wouldn't be popular? That's how peace gets stolen, slowly, subtly, one small performance at a time. But every morning the Stoic asks a different question. What is useful, not just praised? Not, will they like this? Not, will I go viral? Not, will this impress someone? But, will this matter? Will this align with my principles, even if no one claps? Because there's something sacred in living by value. It lasts. It builds something real inside of you, something that applause can never reach. Validation is external, temporary, addictive, but value is internal, enduring, freeing. When you wake up, ground yourself in this truth. Today, I serve my principles, not my popularity. Let that sentence become your filter for everything you do. When you speak, ask yourself, is this true? Is this kind? Is this useful? Not, will this make me look good? When you act, ask, does this build something meaningful? Not, will they approve? When you create, ask, is this aligned with my purpose? Not, will they like me more if I do it this way? Because chasing validation is a trap that never ends. No amount is ever enough. You get one like and you need 10 more. One compliment and you crave another. You become dependent on something you can't control, and that's the opposite of freedom. The Stoic breaks that cycle. He chooses what is right, not what is liked. Marcus Aurelius never asked for recognition. He led by example, not by ego. His journals were never meant to be read by the world. They were written to train his own soul. That's real strength, doing the work even when no one's watching, saying the hard truth even when no one cheers, staying loyal to your values even when you stand alone. That's what it means to serve value over validation. It won't always feel good. Sometimes you'll be misunderstood. Sometimes people won't notice. Sometimes they'll disagree. Let them. That's not your job. Your job is to act with virtue, to build something meaningful, to walk your path without constantly looking sideways. So tomorrow, when the world starts tugging at your ego, pause and remind yourself, I don't need to be seen. I need to be solid. And then move. Quietly, clearly, courageously. Because popularity fades, applause fades, even memory fades. But value? Value echoes. Value builds legacy. Value becomes the part of you that no one can take away. So choose it every single day, even when it's quiet. Especially when it's quiet, because that's when the choice matters most. Number 9. If today is my last, I've already won. Stop for a second. Let this question settle in your chest, not your mind, but your chest. If today were the end, would it be enough? Most people avoid that question. It's uncomfortable. It makes them shift in their seat. It forces them to confront how much of their life is built on delay. Delaying joy, delaying truth, delaying action, all under the false promise that tomorrow is guaranteed. But the Stoic? The Stoic faces it head on. He looks the end straight in the eye, not with fear, but with peace. Because he's not here to run from death. He's here to live in a way that makes death irrelevant. When you wake up, say it. If today is my last, I've already won. Not because everything is perfect, not because every dream came true, but because you lived on purpose. You said what mattered. You loved who mattered. You acted with presence instead of postponement. This mindset changes everything. It burns regret to the ground. It takes away the power of worry. Because what is there to worry about when you've already made peace with the most final thing of all? This is not recklessness. This is not nihilism. This is liberation. When you know that time is short, you stop wasting it. You stop hoarding your best words, your boldest ideas, your truest self. You give freely. You show up fully. Think of the way people live when they believe they still have time. They postpone the apology. They delay the dream. They say, someday, like it's a promise written in the sky. But someday is smoke. It vanishes when you reach for it. So the Stoic doesn't wait for permission. He lives now. He speaks now. He loves now. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Not to scare himself, but to sharpen himself. To make sure each day was lived as if it meant something. And it does. This sunrise, it could be your last. This meal, this walk, this conversation, they could be the closing scene of your story. So why not treat them that way? Why not give them the presence they deserve? If you knew today was the end, would you argue over petty things? Would you scroll endlessly? Would you shrink yourself to please people who don't even see you? Or would you rise with fire in your chest and say, "Let's go. Let's make this count"? That's what this affirmation is about. Not waiting for life to show up, but meeting it at the door, fully dressed, heart open, hands steady. And here's the twist. When you live as if today is your last, you actually start to live longer. Not in years, but in depth, in richness, in meaning. Because every moment becomes sacred. Every gesture becomes full. Every breath becomes enough. So tomorrow morning, say it out loud. If today is my last, I've already won. Then walk into the day like it's a gift. Speak like your words are your legacy. Love like there's no second take. Act like your time matters, because it does. And if the sun sets and you get another chance tomorrow, beautiful. But if it doesn't, you'll know this. You didn't waste it. You didn't wait. You lived. And that means you already won. Number 10. I suffer more in imagination than in reality. You wake up. The sky is quiet. The room is still. But inside your head, a storm is already brewing. Thoughts start racing. What if I fail today? What if that conversation goes badly? What if I lose what I love? What if? What if? What if? Nothing bad has actually happened yet. The day hasn't even begun, but your mind is already bleeding, not from reality, but from imagination. Seneca, one of the wisest Stoics, said it clearly. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And he wasn't wrong. Most of the pain people feel isn't from what's actually going on. It's from the story they're telling themselves about what might go on. And that story? It's usually a lie. Think about how many hours, days, even years of your life have been stolen by fear of things that never happened. You feared rejection and were never rejected. You feared failure and succeeded. You feared embarrassment and no one even noticed. And yet, the damage was real. Not because the event happened, but because you rehearsed it so many times in your head, your body believed it already had. The Stoic doesn't allow that. He scans his mind like a soldier checks his gear before battle. He looks for hidden traps, illusions, fear disguised as logic. He asks himself, what fear have I built today that does not exist in reality? And then he demolishes it. That's your task every morning, before you check your phone, before the news feeds you anxiety, before your to-do list screams for your attention. Take a quiet moment and do a scan. Ask, what am I worried about today that hasn't even happened? What pain am I carrying that only lives in my mind? What worst-case scenario am I rehearsing like it's a script I'll be forced to perform? And once you see it, kill it at sunrise. Don't let it grow. Don't let it take root. Because if you don't challenge your thoughts, they will own you. They will paralyze you. They will drain your peace before your feet even touch the floor. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching your thoughts. And if a thought brings fear, heaviness, dread, examine it. Test it. Don't just believe it because it arrived in your head. Thoughts are not facts. They're visitors. You decide which ones stay. This is the Stoic's superpower. He separates what is real from what is imagined. He doesn't suffer twice, first in thought, then in reality. He suffers once, if at all, and often not even then, because he's trained his mind to stay in the present. The Stoic doesn't ignore risk. He prepares, but he does not let the shadow of risk destroy his light for the day. So repeat this to yourself. I suffer more in imagination than in reality. Let it become your shield. When fear rises, look at it calmly and say, you are not real yet, and I will not suffer for something that hasn't arrived. And if the thing you feared does arrive, you'll meet it with strength, not because you worried endlessly, but because you trained your mind to stay calm, clear, and present. Fear loses its power when you expose its lies. And most fear is just a ghost. It makes noise. It casts a shadow. But when you step toward it, you see there's nothing solid there. So tomorrow morning, don't let your imagination become a prison. Don't let false stories dictate a real day. Wake up, scan your mind, clear the fog, because the pain you fear hasn't happened yet, and it may never happen at all. So don't suffer for it. Don't bow to it. Stand up, breathe deep, and begin your day with freedom. Number 11. Their behavior is their mirror, not mine. You walk into a room and someone snaps at you. They roll their eyes. They cut you off. They ignore your kindness. And instantly, your mind starts to turn. Was it something I did? Did I say something wrong? Am I not good enough? Pause right there. Stop. Because what just happened has nothing to do with you. One of the deepest traps in life is taking things personally that have nothing to do with who you are. People's rudeness, their mood swings, their cold shoulders. None of that is a reflection of your character. It's a reflection of theirs. Say it clearly, firmly, and often. Their behavior is their mirror, not mine. When someone acts out, they are not revealing truth about you. They are revealing truth about themselves. You are simply the surface they're projecting onto. A person full of anger will find a reason to be angry. A person full of insecurity will find a reason to criticize. A person full of inner peace? They will walk through chaos without making it your fault. This is why the Stoic remains calm, not because the world is always kind, but because he refuses to mistake someone else's storm for his own. Before any interaction, at work, at home, in public, tell yourself this: what they do is a broadcast of their inner weather, not a judgment of my worth. Just like you wouldn't take it personally if it rained while you were walking down the street, you shouldn't take it personally when someone else dumps their emotional weather onto you. That's their cloud. That's their thunder. That's their chaos, not yours. The Stoic doesn't react to every temperature shift in the room. He holds steady. Because his peace doesn't depend on other people being kind or happy or fair. His peace depends on one thing, his response. You get to decide if someone's bitterness becomes your burden. You get to decide if their disrespect poisons your mood. You get to decide if their chaos enters your space. And when you remember this truth, that their behavior is not a reflection of you, you gain something rare: emotional freedom. You stop chasing explanations. You stop shrinking your spirit to please people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop feeling small just because someone else feels threatened by your presence. Instead, you walk through storms dry. Think of Epictetus, who was born into slavery and treated unjustly by people with power. Yet he wrote and spoke with calm, wisdom, and dignity. Why? Because he understood that what others say or do does not belong to you unless you accept it. It's like someone trying to hand you a gift of poison. You don't have to take it. You can simply leave it where it is and keep walking. So tomorrow, as you face the world with all its unpredictable moods and messy emotions, carry this thought like armor. Their behavior is their mirror. I don't have to look into it. And then, act with integrity anyway. Be kind without needing applause. Be firm without needing to dominate. Be calm without needing the world to be. Because the storm may swirl around you, but it can't touch you unless you open the door. So don't. Stay dry. Stay still. Stay strong. And let the world do what it does, while you do what you choose to do. Rooted, grounded, unmoved. Number 12. I do not escape difficulty. I build the strength to stand inside it. Everyone wants the shortcut, the easy path, the life without friction. But here's the truth the Stoic knows and most avoid. The hard road is the real road. Discomfort isn't your enemy, it's your trainer. And every day, whether you notice it or not, life is putting you through a kind of gym, not for your body, but for your soul. Most people wake up and pray for ease, for everything to go smoothly, for the challenges to just stay away. But the Stoic wakes up and prepares differently. He says, "Let the day bring what it brings. I don't need it to be easy. I just need to be ready." Because comfort makes you soft. It teaches nothing. It builds nothing. But difficulty, that's where your real strength begins. Say this to yourself each morning: I don't seek to avoid the fire. I grow fireproof skin. That doesn't mean you chase pain. It means you train for it. You expect it. You respect it. You understand that challenge isn't an interruption of your path. It is the path. The Stoic doesn't run from difficulty. He stands inside it, not with panic, but with power. Because he knows resilience isn't given. It's built. Every hardship is a weight to lift. Every stressful moment is a rep. Every obstacle is a lesson in control, in poise, in grit. That's the mindset. That's the lens. So when something hard shows up, don't say, "Why me?" Say, "This is the moment I was made for." You want to be unshakable? Then stop asking life to be gentle. Ask yourself to be strong, not rigid, not cold, strong. Flexible like bamboo, grounded like stone, calm like still water in the middle of chaos. You want to grow? Then don't look for safety. Look for capacity. The ability to carry more, to hold your center even as the world spins. Every day, life offers you the opportunity to train. A rude person? That's your patience drill. A failure? That's your humility workout. An unexpected change? That's your adaptability session. The Stoic doesn't skip leg day, And he doesn't skip Soul Day either. Because this life is not about escaping the burn. It's about learning how to stand inside it without being consumed. Marcus Aurelius ruled through plague, war, betrayal, and loss. But he never begged for escape. He built his core. He reminded himself, if it's endurable, then endure it. Stop whining. Not because he didn't feel pain, but because he refused to be ruled by it. And so must you. Stop seeing difficulty as punishment. Start seeing it as preparation. And every morning, remind yourself, today is a gym for my character. Every challenge is a weight to lift. I grow stronger not by escaping, but by enduring with grace. So when the heat comes, when the pressure rises, when the test shows up, don't run. Stand tall, stay centered, and let your resilience speak louder than your words. You don't need life to be easier. You need to become someone who doesn't break when it's hard. And you are becoming that. One challenge, one breath, one difficult day at a time. Every day is a battle. But the battlefield isn't out there. It's inside your mind. And the weapons you carry aren't loud or flashy. They're quiet truths, daily declarations, Stoic reminders that shape your actions before the world gets a chance to. You've just walked through 12 of them. 12 phrases, 12 shifts. Each one a thread that, if woven daily, can armor your soul against chaos. You don't need more motivation. You need more alignment. You don't need to fix everything outside. You need to fortify what's within. When you tell yourself, I don't have to react, I'm not owed comfort. I walk through mystery. I choose value. I stand inside the fire. You're not just speaking words. You're programming your philosophy. You're sculpting a mind that can't be shaken by moods, noise, or fear. So tomorrow morning, don't reach for your phone. Don't scroll. Don't start with distraction. Start with one of these 12 truths. Say it out loud. Say it like it matters, because it does. And now it's your turn. Drop a comment below with the one affirmation that hit you the hardest. Write it. Claim it. Let us know which line you're carrying into battle tomorrow. And if this gave you something real, something worth remembering, tap that subscribe button. There's more where this came from. This isn't just content. It's mental armor. Let's keep building it together. Have you ever felt like you were trapped in invisible chains, carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, all because of emotional attachment? Imagine the sense of liberation that comes with breaking free from those chains, walking through life with lightness and clarity, focused only on what truly matters. In today's video, we'll discover how to turn attachment into strength and freedom, guided by the enduring wisdom of ancient Stoic philosophers. Prepare yourself for a transformative journey, one that changes how you perceive the world and your emotions. Together, we'll delve into the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, learning the delicate art of letting go with balance, presence, and serenity. If you're ready to take that first courageous step toward a more centered and fulfilling life, you're in the right place. So let's begin. Let's begin with detachment in action. Real detachment starts not in theory, but in practice. To truly let go of past experiences, you must be genuinely willing to release them. That includes past relationships that still take up space in your heart and mind. It's like holding tightly to a rope until your hands ache, yet you're afraid to loosen your grip because you're unsure of what lies on the other side. But here's the truth. Letting go doesn't always mean falling. Sometimes it means your hands are finally free to reach for something far better. I learned this the hard way when I clung to a comfortable relationship simply because it felt safe. What I didn't realize at the time was that my attachment was closing doors to the greater joy and fulfillment that was already knocking. Here's another truth worth remembering. The fear of missing out is a trap. It's like scrolling through everyone else's highlight reels on social media, convincing yourself that you're missing out on life. But that's not real life. It's a carefully edited version designed to show perfect moments. The moment you stop obsessively watching other people's stories and start fully living your own, the fear of missing out begins to lose its grip. You don't need to know every detail of someone else's life to feel fulfilled. Being present in your own life and creating moments that matter to you, those are the things that truly count. The attachment to a false image of happiness can make detachment seem almost impossible. When you constantly compare yourself to others who appear to be living their best lives, it can feel like you're falling behind or that you'll never achieve what they have. But remember this, the grass only seems greener from a distance. That illusion of perfection in someone else's life can steal the joy from your own. It's like running endlessly on a treadmill, chasing a hologram. No matter how fast you go, you'll never reach it, because it isn't real. Detachment doesn't mean you're giving up on happiness. It means you're redefining what happiness means to you. To emotionally detach, embrace the Stoic principle of focusing only on what is within your control, your thoughts, your actions, and your personal growth. It's a powerful realization that no one's opinion, no past relationship, and no perfectly filtered image on social media has the authority to define your worth or your happiness. That awareness becomes your armor. It allows you to move forward without unnecessary emotional baggage, ready to experience life in its raw and unpredictable beauty, and open to the genuine and meaningful connections waiting ahead. So remember, letting go is not an ending. It's a bold and liberating step toward the life you truly deserve. Now let's explore the power of detachment. Why is detachment so vital to our inner peace and strength? When we become overly attached to people or situations, we unintentionally surrender control of our emotions to them. It's like handing someone else the remote control to your feelings, allowing them to flip through the emotional channels of your life at will. This kind of power over us can influence our happiness, sadness, and even lead us to make choices we would never consider in a more calm and balanced state of mind. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means giving the appropriate weight to things that lie beyond your control. Think of your emotions as a ship anchored in harbor. If you're bound by too many anchors, you'll never sail freely across the ocean of life. But the moment you begin lifting those anchors, one by one, you open yourself to new adventures, possibilities, and horizons. Stoicism teaches us to release those unnecessary anchors and navigate life with confidence and inner peace. Let's be practical. Begin by identifying who or what you are overly attached to. Then ask yourself why. Are you seeking validation? Are you afraid of being alone? Or is it something deeper? Understanding the root of your attachment is the first step in regaining control of your life and emotions. Now start investing your energy in activities that bring you true purpose and fulfillment. Practice gratitude. Reflect on your priorities. Meditate on what really matters. Always remember that true growth comes from within. When you focus on your own development and inner well-being, the need for external approval naturally starts to fade. Detachment allows you to truly value your own progress and to find joy in your personal journey. Achievements begin to feel more fulfilling when we learn to find joy in the small, quiet moments. Over time, this mindset builds resilience, enabling us to face life's challenges with calm and confidence. Trusting in this journey of emotional detachment is not a one-time decision. It's an ongoing process. But with each emotional anchor we release, we move a step closer to freedom. Freedom from emotional dependence and toward true inner peace. Navigate the vast ocean of life with courage, knowing that you hold the power to shape your own destiny. Understanding attachment is crucial. When we become deeply attached to something, it's often our ego that's leading the way. At our core, however, we are beings made of love. Think about a newborn baby, pure, joyful, and untainted by the complexities of ego. But as we grow older, the ego begins to assert itself, filling our lives with attachments. These attachments, whether to people, outcomes, or ideals, can blur our judgment and pull us away from our essence, which is rooted in love. It's important to remember that attachment is an ego-driven game, the very opposite of love and inner wholeness. When we step back and look at our desires and relationships through this lens, we start to recognize the unnecessary weight they carry. Now picture a life lived from a space of love rather than ego, a life where you are not desperately clinging to outcomes, to people, or to a sense of status. Living from love allows you to believe in abundance. It helps you trust that what is meant for you will naturally make its way into your life. This isn't about wishful thinking. It's about having a deep-rooted belief in your own worth and abilities. This belief gives you the strength to let go, to see attachments for what they are, anchors that limit your potential and keep you from fully exploring the vastness of who you truly are. Begin by recognizing these anchors. See that the fear keeping you tied to them often stems from your ego's craving for safety and external validation. Then shift your perspective. Understand that your worth is not connected to any specific attachment. At your core, you are enough. This realization doesn't happen instantly. It requires ongoing effort, a conscious and deliberate practice of choosing inner peace over the need for approval. Embrace the idea of abundance. When you release the fear of losing something or someone, the universe has a way of filling your life with even greater gifts than those you let go of. Detachment does not mean that you stop caring. It means that you understand on a deeper level. It means staying true to your essence and allowing love, not fear, to guide you. The path to detachment is one of transformation. It's about peeling away the ego to uncover the resilient, loving soul that exists within. It's about moving through life with lightness, free from the emotional burdens of attachment and ready to welcome new blessings with open arms and an open heart. The illusion of the ego is powerful. Often, our ego convinces us that we're not enough or that others have something we lack. It leads us to believe the grass is greener on the other side, causing us to become emotionally dependent on others in our search for validation. This illusion can push us to idolize others, placing them on pedestals as if they possess something magical or unattainable. Yet in life's most honest moments, we are reminded that no one has a golden ticket. We are all equally vulnerable and human. It's essential to confront this illusion and see it for what it really is, a mirage. Don't allow it to warp your view of yourself or those around you. Let's reflect on self-confidence and inner healing for a moment. Reminding yourself that you are amazing, special, and unique is not arrogance. It's a healthy practice that nurtures self-worth and builds emotional strength. But this mindset should never lead you to see others as lesser or separate from yourself. It's not about comparison. It's about acknowledging that while our paths may differ, none is superior to the other. We are all threads woven into the same great tapestry of life, each one meaningful in its own way. When it comes to attachment, especially in relationships, it's easy to fall into the mindset of scarcity, the fear of losing someone who feels irreplaceable. This fear is directly fueled by the ego, which feeds us narratives of lack and limitation. In truth, emotional detachment does not mean becoming cold or unfeeling. It means embracing the abundance of life and recognizing your own boundless capacity to love. It's about understanding that even if someone holds a special place in your heart, your sense of wholeness is not dependent on their presence. This realization brings freedom. It allows you to love more deeply, without fear, without clinging, and without desperation. It's a shift from attachment to appreciation. In harmony with Stoic philosophy, it is helpful to view everyone, including yourself, through a lens of equality. We all play roles in each other's lives, but no role is indispensable. Just as others impact our journey, we too contribute to theirs. But in the end, no one person holds the key to our inner peace. When we internalize this truth, we develop a deeper emotional strength, one that equips us to face life's uncertainties with grace. The Stoics taught us to focus on what lies within our control, our thoughts, our actions, and our will. By applying this mindset to our relationships and our attachments, we discover a path that leads to true peace and unwavering resilience. Let go of the illusions your ego creates and allow yourself to live from a place of clarity, love, and self-empowerment. This path connects deeply to the fifth way to happiness, a journey inward, asking a powerful question: where does true happiness come from? This question, when genuinely explored, can guide us away from unnecessary attachments and lead us into a space of emotional freedom. Understanding this idea is especially vital when we are faced with the difficulty of letting go of someone we once held dear. Letting go is not a moment, but a process, one that requires us to ground ourselves in the timeless wisdom of Stoicism. Stoicism doesn't teach us to sever ties out of bitterness or indifference. Instead, it calls us to realize that the most meaningful companionship we'll ever have is the one we cultivate with ourselves. Our true worth is not given to us by others. It is formed within through character and wisdom. The way we treat others reflects that inner foundation. It's easy to fall into the belief that our happiness is tethered to the presence of another person in our lives. We think our value rises with their approval and diminishes with their neglect. But this way of thinking binds us, shrinking our vast potential down to someone else's choices. It's like a bird forgetting its wings, believing it needs permission to fly. Now, imagine realizing that the sky has always been open. You were always meant to spread your wings on your own terms. This kind of self-sufficiency is deeply freeing. It teaches us that our worth doesn't rise or fall with the presence, absence, or opinions of others. Emotional detachment, then, isn't about pushing people away. It's about moving closer to ourselves. It's about redirecting our energy to personal growth, to becoming the fullest version of who we're meant to be. In doing so, we lift the weight of dependency. Think of it like growing a garden. You don't beg one flower to bloom, you nourish the soil, water the plants, and trust the natural process. By nurturing ourselves, we cultivate a garden that thrives, regardless of who enters or admires it. That inner cultivation becomes a resilient, independent, and deeply rewarding source of happiness. So, how do we walk this emotional path of detachment? It begins with the realization that you are whole, with or without someone's validation. Your journey is about exploring the vast landscape of your own inner sky. Learn to fall in love with the freedom that comes from flying solo. When you embrace the wisdom of Stoicism, you learn to focus only on what lies within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your growth. This doesn't mean closing off your heart or rejecting love and connection. It means emotionally grounding yourself in the stability of your own being. Remember, your self-worth isn't some incomplete puzzle waiting for someone else's piece. It's a masterpiece, already whole, yet open to receiving more beauty from the world around it. Let this be your empowering reminder. You've come this far, and that alone proves your courage and determination. The path of detachment is one of transformation, and with every step, you reveal the depth of your inner strength. Each act of letting go is not a loss, it is a gain, a testimony to your ability to grow, to rise, and to evolve into your highest self. Never forget, you are the anchor of your own life. No one else holds the reins to your emotions or your destiny. By releasing attachments that no longer serve you, you open the door to fresh possibilities, new adventures, and an inner peace that few ever experience. You are worthy of a life filled with joy, purpose, and meaningful connection. When you apply these Stoic principles and embrace detachment, you are not just transforming your own experience, you are becoming a beacon for others. Your journey inspires those around you to walk their own path of growth. Never underestimate the influence you carry. You are wise, you are resilient, you are filled with limitless potential. Continue forward with confidence, knowing that true happiness and freedom are always within reach. If this message resonated with you, please support this journey. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more inspiring content, and share this with those who may benefit from these powerful insights. We'd love to hear from you. Share your reflections and personal takeaways on emotional detachment in the comments below. Show your commitment to this path of growth by commenting with the phrase, "I'm ready to navigate freely." Your voice matters. Your journey matters. Let's keep creating content that empowers, heals, and uplifts. You're on the verge of a transformation, one that could shake you to your very core. What lies ahead is not just another tip or quick fix to enhance your life. These are powerful life lessons rooted in time-tested wisdom. If you truly choose to embrace and apply them, you won't walk away unchanged. And when you get to number 12, it might just leave you speechless. Let's be honest. We've all grown weary of surface-level advice that fades from memory the moment we hear it. But what you're about to explore isn't fluff. It's the enduring philosophy of Stoicism, ancient teachings that have stood resilient through the centuries for one very good reason. They work. This message isn't for everyone. It's for you, for the one who craves more than a shallow existence. It's for the one willing to turn inward, examine deeply, and grow. So stay with me, because what comes next might be the most important thing you've encountered in a long while. But before we begin, if you find value in videos like this, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you don't miss a single lesson. Some of these may be the light that guides you out of the darkest places. Let's begin. The first idea is about accepting negative thoughts and emotions. Have you ever noticed how your mind can feel like a haunted house, crowded with grim scenes and unsettling characters that refuse to leave? We all experience those moments when negativity feels like an unwelcome guest who just won't go. The instinct is to fight them, suppress them, or run from them. But here's the twist. The Stoics believed the path to peace wasn't in resisting these thoughts, but in accepting them. Yes, you heard that right. Accepting the presence of negative emotions is not surrender. It's the first step toward real inner peace. Imagine those thoughts are like noisy kids at a party. You can raise your voice, try to ignore them, even shut the door, but they're still there, yelling for attention. The Stoic approach suggests a different strategy: acceptance. Not to indulge them, but to allow them to exhaust themselves without pulling you into their chaos. This doesn't mean you're giving in to negativity or letting it dictate your life. Think of it like that stubborn coffee stain on your white shirt. No matter how much you scrub, a trace remains. Rather than obsessing over its removal, what if you simply acknowledged it as part of the fabric? Your negative thoughts are much the same. They're part of your experience, but they don't deserve control over your narrative. One way to practice this is by imagining your thoughts as a train pulling into a station. You can observe the train. You can even hear the announcements and feel the rumble. But you don't have to board it. You don't have to let it take you to places you don't want to go. This mental distance gives you room to breathe, reflect, and choose your response rather than react impulsively. So how do you embrace this acceptance without feeling like you're giving up? Start by recognizing a fundamental truth. Your thoughts and emotions don't have the power to hurt you on their own. It's your resistance, your attachment, your reaction that causes pain. The moment you stop clinging is the moment you take your power back. Letting go is like releasing a balloon into the sky. At first it might feel like a loss, but soon you realize you're lighter, freer. Meditation is a helpful practice here. No, I'm not asking you to retreat to a monastery or chant mantras all day. Just set aside a few quiet minutes each day to sit with your thoughts, without judging them, without following them. Imagine each thought as a leaf drifting along a river. Watch it float past. Don't grab it. Don't push it away. Just observe. Over time, you'll find these negative thoughts lose their grip, their urgency, their emotional weight. Accepting your emotions is like learning to dance in the rain rather than waiting for the sky to clear. Inner peace isn't about erasing the chaos. It's about finding rhythm and grace in the middle of it. The next time those disruptive thoughts start shouting in your mind, remember, you are not defined by them. You are the observer, not the captive. As one Stoic saying goes, true peace is not the absence of storms, but the ability to remain calm amidst them. Now let's explore the importance of making time for reflection. Have you ever felt like a sponge, soaking up every bit of stress and tension around you? You wake up, face the daily grind, and end up carrying emotional baggage that doesn't even belong to you. It's no wonder you feel overwhelmed. Life doesn't slow down on its own. If you don't hit pause from time to time, the chaos will drown you. Reflection isn't just some trendy self-help buzzword. It's a life raft in turbulent waters. Imagine your mind is a control room packed with screens, each one flashing with negative headlines, opinions, and noise. The more screens you activate, the more anxious and lost you feel. You can't shut off the world completely, and you don't have to. What you can do is choose which screens to focus on. Stoic philosophy reminds us that peace is not found by avoiding the storm, but by learning to walk through it without losing your direction. Taking time to reflect is like building a quiet shelter amidst the wind and rain. It doesn't mean you isolate yourself from reality. It means you carve out a mental space where you can breathe, observe, and evaluate your thoughts without getting swept away. Try it. Step away from the constant stream of notifications, toxic news, and draining conversations, even if just for a few minutes each day. It's like wiping off an old compass that's been buried under dust. Suddenly, you can see where you're going again. Turn off the noise, sit in silence, and observe your thoughts as if they were drifting clouds. Don't argue with them. Don't chase them. Let them pass. You'll soon find your mind becomes clearer, more still, and more manageable. This small act of reflection builds inner peace. It allows you to make choices based on clarity rather than chaos. But don't expect this to work overnight. Peace is like a garden. It takes time, attention, and care. But if you stay consistent, you'll come to feel at home within yourself. And when the world throws criticism or negativity your way, you'll remember that your true strength lies in your ability to preserve that calm center within you. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to protect this space of reflection. Don't let external noise determine your internal state. Even when everything around you seems to be falling apart, your ability to return to this stillness will carry you through. Inner peace doesn't mean escaping life. It means being the captain of your own ship, steering confidently even through the roughest seas. As Carl Jung once said, peace is not found in the absence of chaos, but in the ability to remain centered in the heart of it. And now, let's talk about gratitude. We've all had those mornings when everything feels like it's going wrong. Maybe it's raining, maybe you spilled your coffee or got stuck in traffic. Maybe the whole universe seems to be plotting against you. In those moments, it's easy to fall into a pit of complaints, frustration, and self-pity. But what if instead you paused and took a moment to notice what's still going right? This might sound like the advice of an optimist, but let me tell you a secret. Gratitude is far more powerful than people give it credit for. The ancient Stoics knew this. While the world around them collapsed, they learned to find strength not by avoiding hardship, but by discovering meaning and value within it. Instead of staring at the storm, they learned to notice the shelter. You see, gratitude shifts your focus. Rather than obsessing over what you lack, it teaches you to appreciate what you already have. Life gives us all a toolbox. Sure, maybe yours doesn't have the hammer you wanted, but have you noticed the screwdrivers, pliers, or other tools that are already within your reach? Gratitude isn't just a feel-good trend. It's a profound change in perspective. And yes, it takes effort. But that small daily habit of identifying something, anything you're grateful for, can gradually reshape your entire mindset. It's like unlocking a secret superpower that helps you weather life's difficulties with a sense of grace and balance. So, the next time you're stuck in traffic, sipping lukewarm coffee and grumbling about everything going wrong, stop for a second. Take a deep breath and remind yourself of just one thing you're thankful for. You'll be surprised how quickly the atmosphere shifts, not just around you but within you. Because in the end, gratitude is not about denying problems. It's about strengthening your spirit so those problems don't consume you. It's the practice of finding light even when clouds are heavy overhead. And it just might come across as just another trendy idea. But in truth, it represents a profound shift in mindset. Making a conscious choice to seek out something to be thankful for each day might seem like a small gesture, but it's far more powerful than it appears. It's like possessing an invisible superpower that helps you navigate life's highs and lows with a lighter heart. So the next time you find yourself caught in a whirlwind of negative thoughts, try something different. Rather than mourning the absence of your usual morning coffee, appreciate the fact that you have clean drinking water and a kitchen where you can prepare something comforting. It might sound strange at first, but this simple reframing can completely transform your outlook for the day. Now, I'm not suggesting you become an expert in gratitude overnight. Just like a plant that needs water, sunlight, and time to grow, gratitude too requires patience and gentle nurturing. You can begin this journey by jotting down 3 things you're thankful for before going to bed. It doesn't need to be a grand gesture. Simplicity is your greatest ally. Maybe it's the laughter you shared with a friend, a delicious dish you enjoyed, or a book that sparked something within you. As you consistently practice this, you'll find your capacity to discover joy in everyday moments naturally expands. Gratitude isn't a placebo, nor is it about ignoring life's real struggles. It's a powerful anchor that helps you remain steady in the face of any storm. By directing your attention to what is good, even in the middle of chaos, you gift yourself a calmer heart and a more joyful spirit. If you can find even a sliver of something to appreciate, then you always have a reason to smile. Believe me, gratitude won't erase your problems, but it will reframe those tough moments as opportunities to uncover what truly matters. Let's now talk about leading a good lifestyle. There's this persistent belief that you can be completely in control of everything and still totally at ease. But that idea is more myth than reality. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. Still, what if I told you there's a way to get closer to that inner calm, and it doesn't require retreating into a cave or becoming a yoga master? The truth is, a good lifestyle isn't built on one magical formula. It's a blend of simple, often overlooked habits. Let's begin with food. Sure, eating an apple a day won't make you invincible, but it's a great place to start. Think of your body as a finely tuned machine. When you fuel it with real, nourishing food, it just works better. And no, I'm not talking about those triple-shot espressos that keep you buzzing into the early morning hours. I'm talking about fruits, vegetables, proteins, and plenty of water. It's like building a house. If you use high-quality materials, the structure lasts longer. This isn't about giving up chocolate or fries forever, but about finding a balance and giving your body what it truly craves. Because honestly, if all you eat is fast food, your body will end up feeling like an old, worn-out car that can't even be jump-started. Now, onto exercise. It's easy to declare, "I'll hit the gym," but the couch often wins that battle. But moderate exercise isn't about marathon training, it's about consistency. A daily walk, a few minutes of yoga, these small movements do wonders. Think of exercise as the oil that keeps your internal machinery running smoothly. Without it, things start creaking and breaking down. You don't need to be an Olympian, just someone who chooses to move a bit more each day. A little sweat can be the best remedy for stress and anxiety. And then there's sleep, perhaps the most underrated element in modern life. Getting 7 to 8 hours of solid rest each night is like pressing the reset button on your body and mind. If you're staying up all night and still expecting your brain to function like a well-oiled machine the next day, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. It's like trying to charge your phone with a frayed cable. It just doesn't work. Without quality sleep, you're on a slow, exhausting path to burnout. So how do all these things tie into finding peace, even during life's messiest moments? Simple. When you prioritize your overall well-being, you're not eliminating problems, but equipping yourself to handle them better. A balanced diet, regular movement, and enough rest create a strong foundation, a kind of invisible armor that helps you face life's storms with resilience. You don't need to follow Stoic philosophy to live well, though it certainly doesn't hurt. All it really takes is a bit of common sense. When you treat your body and mind with care, life starts to respond in kind. Inner peace isn't some unreachable dream, it's the result of practical, everyday choices. And if someone tells you otherwise, they probably haven't experienced the quiet magic of a full night's sleep and a nourishing meal. As Brian Tracy once said, "Peace isn't a destination. It's the steady balance we create each day through mindful decisions." Have you ever noticed how unnecessarily complicated we tend to make our lives? Think about it. Those piles of paperwork, endless social commitments you barely remember agreeing to, and a daily routine that feels more like a series of hurdles than a walk in the park. Wouldn't it be amazing to strip all that back and create more space for what truly matters to you? Let's take a look at how Stoic philosophy can guide you towards simplifying your life, and in doing so, help you experience peace in any situation. Now, don't get it twisted. Simplifying doesn't mean shirking your responsibilities or retreating into isolation. It's more like doing a massive favor for your already exhausted mind. Imagine your life is like a cluttered closet, jam-packed with clothes you never wear, gadgets you forgot you bought, and paperwork that probably belongs in the recycling bin. Wouldn't it feel incredible to clear all that out? Though Stoicism may sound like something ancient monks practiced, it's actually incredibly practical. At its core, it teaches us to invest our energy only into what we can control. So if you're wondering where to begin simplifying your life, start with this question. What can I adjust to make my daily experience less overwhelming? First, take stock of your commitments. Are there social events you attend out of habit rather than joy? Or work projects that drain you without offering real satisfaction? Sometimes, it's like realizing those ugly shoes at the back of your closet are just wasting space. It's okay to let them go. Next, set boundaries. If you're always available for everyone and everything, you'll eventually feel depleted and resentful. Learning to say no, as simple as it sounds, can be one of the most empowering habits you develop. Your time is precious, so protect it. Lastly, treat your life like a treasure map. Identify what brings you the most joy and make sure your actions reflect those priorities. If family time or quiet afternoons are what truly light you up, then organize your schedule to make room for them. Simplifying isn't about giving up on life, it's about choosing it more intentionally. When you align your days with what matters most, you naturally reduce stress and create more space for peace. Living simply doesn't require a complete overhaul, just a conscious commitment to do less of what drains you and more of what fulfills you. Apply Stoic wisdom by focusing on what you can control and releasing what isn't worth your energy. Imagine the relief of living with less clutter, fewer distractions, and more calm. Sounds pretty great, right? So the next time you feel like life is too much, remember, simplifying is your way of hitting the pause button and choosing peace. Let go of the excess and embrace what's essential, because in the end, living peacefully in any situation starts with living simply and authentically. As Oscar Wilde wisely put it, simplicity is the ultimate expression of refined living. Has this ever happened to you? You do something kind for someone, full of good intentions, and then you find yourself silently waiting, like a kid in front of the Christmas tree, hoping for a return gesture. If you've ever caught yourself thinking that karma or the universe owes you something, then welcome to the club. But before you drown in frustration and disappointment, let's take a moment for a little honest reflection, with a touch of humor. Picture this: you walk into a store, thoughtfully pick out a gift for a friend, wrap it with love, and deliver it with a warm smile. But the next day, your friend doesn't show up with a brand new sports car to say thank you. Would you feel cheated? If your answer is yes, then it's possible you're confusing heartfelt acts with transactional exchanges. Life, especially when it comes to human relationships, isn't like the stock market. You can't trade kindness for rewards like you're dealing shares. If that's your approach, then what you're doing isn't really generosity. It's an emotional investment with strings attached. And let's be real, the Stoics didn't gain their timeless wisdom by investing in emotions or playing the game of expectation. True Stoic virtue lies in doing the right thing simply because it aligns with your values, not because you're hoping for applause or a pat on the back. When you act from the heart, expecting nothing in return, you're not just helping someone. You're gently unraveling the knot of anxiety that builds up when every action hinges on receiving something in return. If every kind gesture becomes a transaction in your mind, then peace of mind will always be just out of reach, fragile and temporary, like a castle made of sand. The Stoics remind us that true strength comes from acting in accordance with our principles, not in chasing validation. But, let's be real, this way of thinking doesn't come naturally. It takes practice. Try imagining that every time you do something kind, instead of awaiting a thank you or a favor in return, you find joy in the act itself. It becomes like a hobby, altruism for the soul. Sure, at the beginning you might feel like a fisherman casting your net into the sea, waiting for it to come back with some sign of gratitude. But in time, you'll discover that the real reward is something much deeper, the quiet satisfaction of knowing you acted with integrity. If you're feeling let down because someone didn't reciprocate your kindness, remember, that disappointment doesn't define the worth of your actions. Real fulfillment doesn't come from what you receive, but from the inner knowing that you stayed true to your best self. It's like exercising, not because you want a medal, but because you value health and well-being. And if you're waiting for the universe to reward your efforts, well, you may be waiting for a long time. So, the next time you're faced with the choice between giving freely or giving with strings attached, remember this: inner peace is found in the act of giving itself, not in hoping for something in return. Give from your heart. And if life decides to surprise you with a reward, then great. If not, at least you'll have the quiet pride of knowing you acted as the best version of yourself. As Gandhi once said, true peace doesn't come from what we receive, but from what we give freely, without expectation. Have you ever felt like you're stuck between a past you can't change and a future you can't predict? Like life itself is on pause, and you're waiting for some invisible signal to finally allow yourself to relax and live. If that hits home, you're definitely not alone. So many of us drift through the day caught between regrets about yesterday and worries about tomorrow. But what if there's a way out of that loop? The answer is surprisingly simple: live in the present. That timeless sacred space that so many spiritual traditions praise, the now. I get it. It sounds like another overused self-help mantra. But trust me, it's more than that. Picture the past as an old friend who won't stop bringing up memories you've outgrown, pulling you back into stories you no longer want to relive. Meanwhile, the future is like a whimsical child, always promising magic and success, yet never delivering on time. And while you're tangled up in both, you completely miss the only thing that really exists, this moment, right now. Stoic philosophy offers a powerful reminder. Accept what you can't change and focus on what you can control. Marcus Aurelius, one of the wisest Stoics, said that the key to happiness is letting go of expectations about the future and embracing the present with calm acceptance. Why not bring a bit of that timeless wisdom into your everyday life? To truly experience the present, start with something as small as practicing mindfulness. And no, you don't need to become a Buddhist monk or a meditation expert. Mindfulness is simply the art of being fully aware of what you're doing in the moment. Think of the joy you feel when you slowly savor a delicious meal. That's mindfulness in action. Try this. Next time you're doing something routine like washing the dishes, instead of thinking about tomorrow's to-do list or replaying a bad conversation, give that moment your full attention. Feel the warmth of the water, the texture of the soap, the sound of the dishes. That one simple act can become an unexpected pocket of peace. You can even bring this into your relationships. Rather than planning your reply while someone is speaking, really listen. Tune in, not just to their words, but to their emotions. This shift can transform your connections and ease your mental load. Now, living in the present doesn't mean ignoring your past or abandoning your goals. It means giving the current moment the space and respect it deserves. I'm not suggesting you ditch your responsibilities or forget your dreams. I'm just encouraging you not to get lost in the fog of what's already behind you or what hasn't yet arrived. The next time you catch yourself spiraling into thoughts of what was or what might be, ground yourself in what is. This moment, right now, is all you truly have. It's the only space where you can find real peace and contentment. So, hold on to that truth. The present is the only moment that belongs to you. Now, imagine this. You're in the middle of a strong river, and you're trying with all your might to swim upstream. It's exhausting, frustrating, and at some point, you start to realize maybe you're not meant to fight the current. That's what it feels like when you cling to emotions, memories, or thoughts that belong in the past. We've all been there. Stoic philosophy, which, yes, might sound like something tucked away in an old leather-bound book, has a clear and powerful message here. Peace comes from learning to let go. The Stoics weren't big fans of emotional melodrama. They believed that freedom comes when we release our grip on things we can't control. If you feel stuck in a cycle of emotional fatigue, of replaying the same old heartbreaks or regrets, maybe it's time to admit that you've been swimming upstream. And the first step in letting go, acknowledging what's weighing you down. If there's a thought that haunts you each night, or a grudge that knots your stomach, ask yourself, why are you still carrying it? Holding on to that pain is like keeping a stone in your pocket just because someone handed it to you years ago. Sure, it might not be easy to throw that stone away, but you can at least set it down for a while. Think of it like driving down a road and someone throws a rock at your car. You could let that stone ruin your journey, or you could keep moving forward. Of course, you might be tempted to throw the stone back, but who are you really hurting in the process? Detaching from toxic thoughts and feelings requires one thing above all: acceptance. Accept that you can't rewrite the past. You can't hold off the future. Trying to is like catching rain with your bare hands. You'll just get soaked and angry. Instead, focus on what you can handle, your reactions, your mindset, and your choices in this moment. One helpful approach is simple self-care. Make a list of the things that bring you peace. Maybe it's a walk in nature, reading a good book, or sipping your favorite drink in silence. When you engage with what lifts your spirit, you start clearing mental space away from all those heavy thoughts. And don't forget, letting go doesn't mean pretending you're not hurting. It's like cleaning out a cluttered closet. You can't just slam the door shut and ignore the mess. You have to take things out one by one and decide what to keep and what to release. Allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of your emotions, process them, and then gently release them. In doing so, you make room for calm, clarity, and joy. So the next time you find yourself fighting the current of your mind, remember that clinging only drains you. True peace flows in when you learn to release and accept. Like Nelson Mandela once said, holding on to the past is like trying to stop the tide. You'll only drown if you don't learn to let go. We live in a world where busyness is worn like a badge of honor, and stress is considered normal. It's like we're all caught in a whirlwind of chaos, barely able to hear ourselves think. But here's a simple truth. The ancient Stoics understood well. Taking just a few quiet minutes each day for relaxation can serve as your direct gateway to a calm state of mind. One so steady that even traffic jams, demanding bosses, or unsettling news reports can't shake you. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Meditation? That's just for monks or people hiding out in mountain caves. Well, maybe it once seemed that way, but meditation is also for people like you and me, those of us who aren't searching for peace in remote retreats, but in the chaos of daily living. Meditation isn't a badge that turns you into a hermit. It's a practical tool, a way to quiet the mental clutter and recenter yourself. Picture this for a moment. Your mind is like a radio that never stops switching channels, jumping between static and loud pop songs. It's a constant stream of noise and distraction. Meditation acts like a mute button, giving you a few moments of stillness in a sea of chaos. It doesn't aim to silence the noise forever. Instead, it teaches you how to live with it, without letting it drive you to the edge. By dedicating just a few minutes each day, meditation becomes like taking a break in the middle of a grueling obstacle course. It's that brief pause that helps you gather your thoughts and let your anxieties fade, almost like magic. So, how do you start? It's not complicated. You can begin by finding a quiet space, your room, or even the bathroom if that's what's available. Sit down comfortably, close your eyes, and allow your mind a few moments to let go of the whirlwind of worries that often feel urgent but are really just background noise. Another great approach is listening to soothing music. It can be your companion on the path toward calmness. Think of relaxing music as a gentle embrace for your mind, reminding you that it's perfectly okay to release the stress of the day and return your focus to the present moment. This simple act is a powerful way to reconnect with yourself, especially when the world outside feels like it's in a constant state of disorder. The notion of living peacefully regardless of what's happening around you might sound far-fetched. But if the ancient Stoics managed to find inner serenity during the most chaotic times of history, why can't you? Stoic philosophy teaches a simple but profound truth. We cannot control external events, but we can absolutely control how we react to them. If you take just a few minutes each day to nurture your inner calm, you'll notice that those uncontrollable circumstances lose much of their grip over you. So the next time you find yourself stuck in endless traffic or drowning in a flood of emails, remember, you can pause, breathe, close your eyes, and realign with yourself. You don't have to escape the world to find peace. All you need is a few mindful moments and the willingness to slow down. Taking time to meditate or to simply listen to calming music isn't a luxury or a passing wellness trend. It's a real, down-to-earth strategy to stay grounded in the middle of life's storms. So take that small but meaningful first step toward mental stillness. Don't let the noise of the outside world rob you of your right to inner peace. It may seem too simple to work, but that's the truth many are finally beginning to embrace. Inner peace isn't a final destination. It's a daily journey that begins with each breath you take. Now let's talk about something else that quietly steals our peace. Criticism. Constructive criticism, destructive criticism. Have you ever considered how much time and energy we waste judging, comparing, and jumping to hasty conclusions? It's a bit like those moments when you sit on your couch with grand plans to fix the world, only to realize later that your biggest accomplishment was finishing a pack of cookies. Sure, tearing things apart with criticism can feel satisfying in the moment, but over time it becomes a fast lane to frustration, disappointment, and inner restlessness. So how do we reclaim serenity amid this mental mess we often create for ourselves? The answer lies in learning not to judge. Imagine you're on a battlefield. On one side is a sharp arrow labeled destructive criticism, and on the other, a spear named self-acceptance. The arrow is piercing and cold, while the spear feels more like a warm embrace. Which one would you choose? Your instinct might pull you toward the arrow. It's easier to criticize others and yourself. But that path leads nowhere except to a constant feeling of inadequacy. It's like trying to fill a bucket with no bottom. No matter how much effort you put in, it's never enough. Here's where Stoic wisdom becomes more helpful than any self-help manual. The Stoics believed in focusing on what we can control and surrendering what we can't. Rather than using your energy to criticize what's out of your hands, why not direct that energy toward what you can change? For instance, instead of judging how others live their lives, shift your focus to becoming the best version of yourself. What if you used that time you normally spend criticizing to learn a new skill or work on self-improvement? Not only would the results be more fulfilling, but you'd also find a surprising amount of peace in the process. When you stop judging and comparing, you invite more flexibility and tolerance into your life. Sometimes criticism feels like a national pastime, but in this game, everyone loses. By choosing to be more understanding rather than judgmental, you start to see that the world isn't quite as chaotic as it seemed. It's like trying to solve a puzzle without having the picture on the box. At first, it's confusing and overwhelming, but with patience and an open mind, the pieces eventually fall into place. Inner peace doesn't live in constant judgment or endless comparisons. If you truly want to experience peace without emotional suffering, begin by breaking the habit of criticizing everything and everyone, including yourself. Learn to be gentle, accepting, and tolerant. That's when serenity finds its way into your life. As Marcus Aurelius put it in Meditations, inner peace begins when we stop fighting the world and start making peace with ourselves. Let's now turn our attention to something just as important: solving your basic needs. Living in peace might sound as easy as making a wish and snapping your fingers. But let's be honest, peace isn't hiding in some hidden corner of your mind. Sometimes it feels like inner peace is playing a game of hide and seek, and until your foundational needs are addressed, it will remain out of reach. The reality is that if you want to taste that rare and sacred tranquility, your life needs to have order. And no, I'm not talking about organizing your coffee mug collection. I'm talking about the essentials: shelter, nourishment, and relationships. Let's put it in context. Imagine building a house. Before you can even think about decorating, you need a solid foundation. You can't build your sanctuary on poetic thoughts about meditating in the Himalayas. You need bricks and mortar, real practical basics. Your inner peace works the same way. Its foundation lies in your fundamental needs. First, let's talk about home. Not the picture-perfect setups you scroll past on Instagram, but a space, any space, where you feel safe. A refuge that gives you a sense of security, a place to recharge away from the world's noise. Without that sense of physical and emotional stability, how can you even begin to look for peace? Then there's food, not fast food cravings, but real nutrition. Your body needs fuel, and without it, both your physical and mental systems are constantly under pressure. That tension doesn't lead to peace. It leads to burnout. Now, think about relationships. If your circle is filled with negativity and drama, your peace is like a fragile plant caught in a storm. It simply can't thrive. You need people around you who uplift you, who provide emotional support, and who genuinely care about your well-being. Without those kinds of connections, even the wisest Stoic teachings will feel hollow compared to the emotional turmoil you're navigating. So how do you start building this foundation for peace? Begin by identifying the areas of your life that are in crisis. If you don't have a stable place to live, explore your options, even if that means adjusting your expectations. You don't need luxury, just a place that gives you a sense of security. As for food, take some time to learn about nutrition and make simple changes. You don't need to eat gourmet meals, just real food that keeps your mind and body in balance. When it comes to your relationships, do a little soul searching. Take stock of who's in your life, who lifts you up, who weighs you down. Sometimes, peace comes not from adding more people, but from letting go of toxic ones and surrounding yourself with those who nourish your spirit. In the end, the pursuit of peace isn't some magical final quest. It's a series of practical, intentional actions. Without addressing your most basic needs, peace will continue to be a mirage. So if you truly want that calm everyone seems to talk about, start by laying down strong foundations, a safe space, nourishing food, and healthy relationships. Once you've ensured that your basic needs are met, you'll be ready to explore that elusive state of tranquility. As a wise Stoic once said, stability is found in the essentials, and when those are in place, peace will become a consistent presence in your life. Now, let's talk about accepting your imperfections. Have you ever tried to be perfect? Or perhaps you spent a few moments chasing that elusive ideal? In your quest for perfection, you likely tried to fit into molds that even you couldn't have imagined. Eventually, you found yourself struggling to meet expectations that seemed to be designed by an alien committee with a very questionable sense of humor. But let me tell you something. Perfection is a myth. It's an illusion we're sold as if it's the holy grail of existence. Perfection, my friend, is like a shiny unicorn everyone talks about, but one that's never actually been seen in real life. You might think that if you could just fix your hair, your love life, or your ability to make the perfect souffle, you could reach that sublime level of existence. But the truth is, not even the most famous influencers have a perfectly balanced life. Everything is just a well-rehearsed show. So, why do you torment yourself trying to reach something that doesn't even exist? Consider the Stoic philosophy for a moment. The Stoics teach us that suffering comes from fighting against what we cannot change. So why torture yourself trying to be perfect in a world where no single standard of perfection exists? Instead of this exhausting pursuit, why not embrace your imperfections and see them as part of what makes you unique. Before you fall into a sea of self-pity, here's a practical perspective. Think of yourself as a work of art in constant evolution. Imagine you are a canvas on which you paint with colors that sometimes go beyond the edges. Those scribbles that seem like mistakes often turn out to be the most interesting details. If you focus only on the perfect edges, you'll miss the beautiful chaos that makes your life truly unique. No, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be yourself. And being yourself means accepting that sometimes you'll make mistakes, feel clumsy, or be asked if you really know what you're doing. But at the end of the day, that's not what makes life truly exciting. So what should you do with all of this? First, begin by accepting your imperfections as part of your identity. Don't fight them. Embrace every little flaw and learn to laugh at them. Second, focus on enjoying the journey rather than obsessing over the end goal of perfection. Pay attention to the small, joyful moments that make up your life. Remember, living at peace doesn't mean a life free from problems. It means knowing how to manage your expectations. If you cling to the idea of perfection, you'll miss out on the real fun of life. Life is about accepting that you don't fit into every mold and instead creating your own. Let go of perfection. I assure you, neither you nor I, nor will anyone else on this planet ever reach that illusory state. But if you learn to enjoy your imperfections and live with joy, you'll find that life is far more enjoyable and rewarding. As Einstein once said, perfection is the prison of the mediocre. Imperfection is the freedom of the great. So go ahead, live imperfectly and celebrate every little chaotic moment in your life. After all, it is your life. Imagine living with an unshakable sense of peace, where nothing and no one has the power to disturb your calm. A life where criticism, offenses, and problems no longer steal your tranquility. It may seem impossible, but the Stoics were able to achieve this while the world around them reacted with anger and frustration. They remained composed, not because they didn't feel emotions, but because they had learned to master them. In this post, I will share how you can achieve the same level of peace by applying Stoic teachings. Once you do, you'll find yourself no longer getting angry or upset with anyone. Not because the world will change, but because you will have transformed yourself. To begin, go to the comments and write, "Today, I start my best version. I am Stoic." By doing so, you commit to taking control of your mind and living with discipline. Now, let's dive into how you can master your emotions and achieve this inner peace. One of the most destructive emotions we can experience is anger. Not only does it harm the people around us, but it also eats away at us from the inside, weakening our minds and leading us to make decisions that we may later regret. The Stoics saw anger as one of the greatest threats to virtue, because when we allow anger to take control, we stop thinking rationally and become slaves to our impulses. Anger is not a sign of strength, but of weakness, a proof that we've lost control over ourselves. Anger is like a wildfire that starts from a small spark. Perhaps it's an offhand comment, an action we perceive as unfair, or an unexpected obstacle. If we feed it with negative thoughts, it grows and quickly spirals out of control, consuming our mental clarity, damaging our relationships, and harming our well-being. Marcus Aurelius wisely suggested that the best way to fight anger is by preventing it from arising in the first place. By learning to recognize the early signs of anger, we can extinguish it before it overwhelms us. The consequences of allowing anger to take over are dire. Not only does it lead to unnecessary conflict, but it also impacts our health. Science has confirmed what the Stoics knew long ago, that anger raises blood pressure, weakens the immune system, and can even trigger cardiovascular issues. Anger is not just a fleeting emotion, it's a poison that, if allowed to grow unchecked, can destroy both the mind and body. As Epictetus taught, it's not the external events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. If someone insults us, it's not the insult itself that harms us, but the value we attach to it. Learning to control our perception is the first step toward mastering anger. When we allow ourselves to be swept up by anger, our actions often become irrational. In the heat of the moment, it might seem justified to yell, insult, or lash out. However, when the storm has passed, we realize that our response only made the situation worse. A moment of anger can destroy relationships that took years to build, and harsh words can leave scars that never heal. Seneca described anger as a brief delirium, a state where we lose control over our words and actions. If we take a moment to observe ourselves closely, we'll notice that most of our angry reactions are disproportionate and illogical. Think of an argument with a loved one. In the heat of the argument, harsh words might seem necessary, but once things calm down, we realize that we could have handled the situation more wisely. Problems can often be solved with calm dialogue and patience, but anger clouds our judgment, making us seek revenge rather than solutions. This only feeds a cycle of resentment and pain. The Stoics taught that the best way to combat anger is through self-discipline and reflection. Marcus Aurelius suggested that we remember that life is short, and most of the things that upset us are insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Seneca recommended practicing patience and indifference toward provocations. True strength lies not in responding with violence, but in remaining calm when everything around us seems to be pushing us toward anger. Anger is an internal enemy, a beast that, if not tamed, can consume us. But the good news is that we can train ourselves to resist it. The next time you feel anger rising, stop and ask yourself if it's really worth it. Remember, no one has the power to disturb you unless you allow it. Peace is not found in the absence of provocations, but in the ability to face them with calmness and control. All negative emotions, including anger, arise from unmet expectations. Negative emotions don't stem from what happens to us, but from what we expect to happen. Frustration, anger, sadness, all of these emotions share a common root: the gap between what we expected and what actually occurred. When we believe that the world should behave in a certain way and it doesn't, we feel disappointed or hurt. But in truth, the fault lies with us for having created unrealistic expectations. We cling to illusions, and when reality shatters those illusions, instead of adapting, we react with suffering. We get angry because people don't act as we want them to, because the outcomes we expected don't materialize, or because life doesn't follow the script we've written in our minds. We believe we deserve certain treatment, certain successes, or clear paths. But life doesn't follow our rules. Frustration arises not from the event itself, but from the contrast between what we hoped for and what actually happened. Seneca wisely said that we suffer more in our imaginations than in reality, because it's not the events that harm us, but the way we interpret them. If we learn to accept events without resistance, we can avoid much of the unnecessary pain. Imagine someone who believes that their partner will never cheat on them because that's what should happen. They've built an expectation based on their own sense of right and wrong. But if betrayal occurs, their anger doesn't stem from the act itself, but from the clash with the idealized image they had created. Instead of accepting reality as it is, they resist it, and that internal struggle leads to suffering. Another example might be a person who expects their friends to always be there for them, or their boss to value their efforts. When these expectations aren't met, they feel disappointment and anger because they assume the world should follow their rules. The Stoics teach us that the key to inner peace lies in eliminating unrealistic expectations. It's not about resignation, but about understanding that the world owes us nothing. We cannot control the actions of others or the events outside of our control. The only thing we can control is our own reaction to them. Epictetus urged us to accept what happens as if we had chosen it ourselves, because resisting reality only creates suffering. If we stop expecting people to behave in a certain way and accept that they may fail us, and if we accept that life doesn't always follow a predictable path, we can eliminate much of the stress and frustration in our lives. Accepting reality as it is doesn't mean we shouldn't have goals or desires, but we must be prepared for the unexpected. A Stoic understands that everything is subject to change and that nothing is guaranteed. That's why they don't allow their emotions to be dictated by external factors. By eliminating rigid expectations, we stop demanding that the world conform to our beliefs. Instead of getting frustrated when things don't go as planned, we ask ourselves what we can learn from the situation. Rather than feeling betrayed, we understand that people act according to their own nature, not according to the one we've imagined for them. True peace is found in flexibility, the ability to accept whatever comes our way without resistance. Finally, anger is often a reflection of the ego. When we feel disrespected, treated unfairly, or overlooked, we react with anger because our sense of identity feels threatened. We believe we deserve better treatment, that others should see us as we see ourselves. When that doesn't happen, we feel that something sacred within us has been violated. But the truth is that anger doesn't come from what others do to us. It comes from our interpretation of their actions. It's our ego that demands recognition, that takes offense, that needs to defend our image. If our ego weren't so fragile, if we didn't take ourselves so personally, anger would lose its grip on us. When someone speaks to us harshly, our initial reaction is to feel attacked. But what if that person is simply having a bad day, and their words have nothing to do with us, but with their own struggles? The reality is that most of the time, others' actions are more about them than they are about us. However, our ego makes us believe that everything revolves around us. We say, "He disrespected me. He embarrassed me. He didn't appreciate me." But what would happen if we stopped positioning ourselves at the center of every experience? What if we truly understood that other people's actions are their own burdens to carry, not ours? In doing so, we could release ourselves from the grip of anger. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. If someone offends us, the insult in itself holds no power unless we choose to give it meaning. We have the power to ignore it, to see it as a reflection of the other person's inner world, and to move forward without letting it disturb our peace. But the ego does not want peace. It wants conflict. It wants to defend its image. It wants to prove that it is right. And in that desire to protect our sense of self, we fall into the trap of anger. We lose control and react impulsively. But if another person's insult doesn't change our identity, and their attitude doesn't define our value, Why allow ourselves to be dragged into a state of emotional chaos? Consider a simple moment in traffic. Someone cuts us off abruptly. The ego insists this is a personal offense, a blatant act of disrespect that must be addressed. It urges us to react, to retaliate, to not allow such treatment. Yet the reality is that the other driver probably didn't even notice us. They're lost in their own thoughts, their own day. Still, our ego insists on taking it personally, turning a thoughtless act into an insult. And in doing so, it invites anger to take over. But what if, instead of reacting, we chose to accept the moment as it is? This dynamic plays out across our relationships and daily interactions. What provokes us is not the event itself, but the story we tell ourselves about it. The Stoics taught that to master anger, we must understand the role our ego plays in inflaming it. If we build a healthy self-esteem, if we release the need for constant validation, if we recognize that our value is not tied to how others treat us, we become immune to provocation. As Seneca said, the best revenge is not to become like those who hurt us. If someone treats us poorly and we react with rage, we surrender our peace to them. But if we remain calm, if we refuse to play their game, we show real strength. Anger is a reflex born from an ego that has not yet learned to let go of others' opinions. But once we understand that no one else has the authority to define us, we begin to free ourselves. Their behavior says more about them than it ever will about us. This doesn't mean we should tolerate abuse or accept injustice in silence. It means learning to respond with intelligence rather than raw emotion. Inner peace doesn't come from controlling the behavior of others. It comes from mastering our own reactions. When the ego is no longer the center of our universe, anger loses its hold. Forgiveness, too, is a key that frees us from anger. Anger is a heavy weight, often carried unconsciously. We cling to resentment, believing it somehow punishes the person who wronged us. But in truth, we are the only ones being punished. Anger consumes our inner calm, traps us in a mental prison, and blocks us from moving forward. Forgiveness, on the other hand, unlocks that prison. It doesn't mean we excuse what happened or forget it naively. It means we let go of the need to continue suffering over something already done. Forgiveness is not a gift we give the other person. It is an act of love for ourselves. It is an essential step toward reclaiming our peace. Holding on to anger means reliving pain over and over again. Our minds become battlegrounds where the past continues to inflict fresh wounds. We keep empowering the person who hurt us simply by refusing to release the memory. But Marcus Aurelius said that the best revenge is to be unlike the person who caused us harm. If we were betrayed, offended, or deeply wounded, continuing to harbor resentment only extends that person's control over us. Forgiveness gives us back our power. It enables us to shed the weight of the past and move forward unburdened by bitterness. Resentment is a trap laid by the ego which tells us that forgiveness is weakness. In reality, true strength lies in those who govern their emotions and choose peace over pain. Seneca taught that anger should never guide our actions. When we act from anger, we are no longer the authors of our behavior. If someone wrongs us and we respond with resentment, we are giving them authority over our serenity. But if we choose forgiveness instead, we reclaim control over our thoughts and our well-being. Imagine someone who has been betrayed by a close friend. The natural response is anger, disappointment, a thirst for revenge. But how long can one sustain that emotional storm before it becomes toxic? Resentment doesn't torment the traitor, it poisons the one who holds on to it. Each recollection of the betrayal stirs fresh pain. Forgiveness allows us to accept that what's done is done, that the past need not dictate our present. This is not about trusting the betrayer again, but about refusing to let their actions continue to influence our happiness. Forgiveness is a conscious decision. It doesn't happen instantly, and it's rarely easy, but it is the pathway to inner freedom. Epictetus reminded us that while we cannot control the actions of others, we always retain control over our response. When we are offended, it is not the insult that truly wounds us, but the weight we attach to it. Through forgiveness, we strip away that weight. We come to understand that everyone acts according to their own inner state, their own level of awareness. Their behavior is a mirror of their internal world, not a reflection of ours. This doesn't mean we tolerate abuse or stay silent in the face of injustice. It means we learn to release the resentment that suffocates our joy. When we forgive, we are not just freeing the other person. We are liberating ourselves. We stop dragging unnecessary burdens. We conserve our energy for what truly matters. The real revenge is not to hurt in return, but to show that we remain unchanged by the harm done to us. We move forward, unshaken by anger, grounded in peace. Peace does not come from waiting for others to apologize. It comes from deciding that our well-being is not tied to their behavior. Forgiveness is not about pretending nothing happened. It is about choosing freedom over rage, serenity over turmoil. Practicing non-reaction is another way we guard ourselves against anger. When something irritates or provokes us, our first instinct is emotional and immediate. We want to respond, to defend, to assert our correctness. But in those moments, we are not thinking clearly. Our minds are being ruled by instinct, not reason. That's when we make mistakes. That's when we say things we later regret. That's when we escalate what could have been peacefully resolved. Training ourselves to pause before responding gives us mastery over our emotions. It shields us from the emotional exhaustion that impulsive reactions often cause. Taking a moment, resisting the pull to respond immediately, these are acts of power. This doesn't mean suppressing emotion or becoming indifferent. It means refusing to be a slave to emotion. Marcus Aurelius advised that the best defense against an insult is not to resemble the one who insults you. If someone hurls harsh words at you, reacting with anger only means you've allowed them to disturb your peace. But if you remain calm, if you choose silence or a measured response, you show that you're in control, that your well-being is not dictated by others' moods. Daily life offers countless opportunities to practice non-reaction. A rude coworker, an aggressive driver, a family member always looking to argue. In each moment, the choice is ours. We can fuel the fire, or we can pause and respond with wisdom. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to us, but how we interpret it, that affects us. If someone criticizes you in a meeting and you take it personally, you'll react defensively. But if you pause, breathe, and consider the situation rationally, you may choose to respond calmly, preserving both your professionalism and your peace. Non-reaction is not weakness, it is a sign of strength. Most people are at the mercy of their impulses. When provoked, they lash out without thinking. But true power belongs to those who can resist that initial urge, to those who know they don't have to prove anything, to those who choose when and how to act. Seneca once reminded us that time acts as a powerful filter for emotions. What feels like an unforgivable offense today often fades into irrelevance in just a few days. The things that deeply irritate us right now may seem trivial in a matter of hours. This is why it's so important not to react immediately. Delaying our reaction allows us to gain perspective, to step back and view the situation with greater clarity before making any decisions. Practicing non-reaction does not mean passively accepting everything or allowing others to mistreat us. Rather, it means responding with reason instead of emotion. If something genuinely requires a response, the most effective one will come from a calm mind. Instead of reacting to fire with more fire, we respond with intelligence and inner balance, not out of weakness, but because we understand that our peace is far more valuable than a meaningless argument. Every time we feel the urge to react impulsively, we must remember that we always have the option not to. We can allow the emotion to rise and pass without letting it control us. In doing so, something remarkable begins to happen. Conflicts become fewer, anxiety diminishes, and those who once provoked us lose their grip on our emotional state. This practice of non-reaction opens the door to true freedom, the ability to choose how and when we respond, no longer enslaved by external triggers. There is a deep connection between low self-esteem and anger. Anger is often nothing more than a reflection of internal insecurity. When we are not at peace with ourselves, even a passing comment, a glance, or a simple situation that challenges our self-image can set us off. It's not the event itself that enrages us, it's what it stirs up inside. If someone criticizes us and we respond with anger, the real issue is not their words, but the weight we give them. If we were secure in who we are, with strong self-esteem, we wouldn't need to react with anger. We would simply disregard the remark. But when our sense of self is fragile, any slight shakes us, and anger becomes our shield. Insecurity breeds a sense of vulnerability. We feel we must constantly defend our image, convinced others are judging us and that every negative comment is a threat. Our mind misinterprets these situations as personal attacks and reacts aggressively. But the truth is, no one can diminish our worth unless we allow it. Epictetus taught that we are not disturbed by what others say, but by the meaning we assign to their words. If we believe we are weak or inadequate, any criticism will reinforce that belief, and our first response will be anger. On the other hand, if we possess a solid sense of identity, no external judgment can rattle us. I recall a time when every remark about my appearance triggered anger. I used to tell myself it was due to others' lack of respect, but in reality, I was angry with myself. I disliked what I saw in the mirror, and every external comment felt like confirmation of my own doubts. Their opinion didn't hurt me, my own perception did. The anger didn't stem from them, but from the insecurity I carried within. Over time, I came to see that the real problem wasn't other people. It was my own lack of control over myself. So instead of wasting energy reacting in anger, I chose to take action. I focused on improving my health, building discipline, and reshaping my mindset. And gradually, when those same comments were made, they no longer affected me. Not because people had changed, but because I had changed. Low self-esteem distorts the way we perceive reality. We start to believe we are under constant judgment, but it's not the outside world causing our distress, it's our perception of it. Marcus Aurelius once said that if something external disturbs us, the issue isn't with the thing itself, but in our judgment of it. So when someone says something that offends you, ask yourself why it affects you. Is it because deep down you fear it might be true? Do you carry doubts about yourself? Often, the answer is yes. Anger is a defensive reaction to that inner insecurity. But when we work on our self-worth, anger loses its grip on us. We become less reactive, more serene, and more focused on what truly matters. We no longer feel the need to prove ourselves to anyone because we already know who we are. The opinions of others cease to be threatening because our sense of value no longer depends on their approval. The Stoics teach us that real strength doesn't come from controlling others, but from mastering ourselves. Anger is a signal that something within us still needs healing. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can view those moments as opportunities to reflect, to grow, and to identify the parts of ourselves that still need attention. Every time you feel anger from a comment or a situation, pause. Ask yourself whether it's truly the external event that upsets you or if something deeper is being stirred. Use anger as a mirror to recognize where personal growth is still needed. When you build your self-esteem and take ownership of your life, anger becomes unnecessary. There is no insecurity left to defend, no fear to conceal. What remains is a calm strength, a sense of self that no longer needs to react to things that don't define it. Living with purpose is equally essential. Without a clear sense of purpose, life feels empty, chaotic, and directionless. You wake up each day without a compelling reason to move forward, just going through the motions of routine. This emptiness breeds frustration. A lack of purpose turns people into reactive beings, constantly irritated, quick to anger, and always on edge. Every inconvenience feels amplified because there is no greater vision to rise above the daily frustrations. Without direction, the mind becomes cluttered with noise and disorder, and in such a state, it's easy to fall into bitterness and anger. The Stoics understood that peace of mind comes from having a purpose that aligns with our values, a reason for living that makes us feel our life has meaning. When you don't have a defined purpose, every little thing becomes a distraction. Traffic frustrates you, people's words bother you, life feels unfair. But when you're working towards something greater, these things begin to lose their power over you, not because they disappear, but because your focus shifts. Marcus Aurelius said that each of us must ask ourselves, why am I here? What truly matters to me? Once you have clarity on that, the small frustrations of life stop controlling you. You stop wasting energy reacting to every annoyance because you're now investing your energy in something meaningful. I remember a time when I felt completely directionless, trapped in a monotonous routine, doing things that brought me no fulfillment. I was irritable all the time. Every little problem felt enormous because I had no deeper reason to get out of bed in the morning. I was living on autopilot, letting circumstances dictate my emotional state. But everything changed when I discovered my purpose. I committed to creating content and sharing ideas that could genuinely help others. That gave me a sense of meaning. Suddenly, the problems that once felt unbearable became just part of the process. They no longer frustrated me. I stopped being irritated by the small things because I was focused on something larger. Anger no longer felt like a natural response because my attention was on something more important. The Stoics teach that purpose is not something we find, it's something we define. We don't wait for life to hand it to us. We create it. Epictetus said it's our responsibility to decide who we want to become and what we want to contribute. It's not about waiting for inspiration, but about taking deliberate action. Find what makes you feel alive, what gives your life depth. When you discover your purpose and commit to it wholeheartedly, your frustration begins to fade. You no longer worry about things beyond your control. You no longer seek approval or feel the need to prove yourself. You simply do what you know in your heart you must do, and that brings deep satisfaction. When you live with purpose, life stops feeling like a series of problems and begins to feel like an opportunity. You stop reacting with anger to every obstacle because you understand that every challenge is just a step on your path. Each day carries meaning. Every action contributes to something greater. And when that becomes your reality, peace arises, not because everything is perfect, but because you've chosen what matters most to you. There is no room for anger when you're busy building something meaningful. If you feel let down by life or find yourself constantly frustrated, ask yourself if you truly have a clear purpose. Are you spending your time doing something that fills you up, or are you merely passing the days without direction? The difference between a life filled with frustration and a life filled with meaning lies in that answer. Discover what drives you, what compels you to rise each day and move forward with passion. When you identify what truly motivates you, anger begins to lose its grip on your life. Because when you live with purpose, everything else fades into the background as mere noise. Harnessing the power of neuroplasticity can help rewire your emotional responses. The brain is not hardwired into fixed patterns. Neuroplasticity allows us to reshape how we react to situations that once provoked anger or frustration. The idea that we are stuck with how we are is a falsehood we tell ourselves. The truth is, the brain is flexible. Like a muscle, it can be trained and strengthened in specific areas depending on how we use it. When we habitually respond to irritation with anger, we're reinforcing that reaction, making it automatic over time. But if we begin to respond with calmness instead, we slowly reprogram our brains to adopt a new, healthier reaction. It all starts with awareness. When someone insults us, when something doesn't go our way, when we feel disrespected, our first impulse is to react in the way we always have, the way we've conditioned ourselves over the years. But the key lies in resisting that automatic response and consciously choosing a new one. By forcing ourselves to stay calm in those moments, we're paving the way for a new neural pathway to form. Initially, it feels unnatural, awkward, even fake, but with repeated effort, that new calm response begins to feel normal. Eventually, it becomes instinctual. I remember a time when my dog ruined something that was deeply important to me. My natural reaction would have been to yell, to explode in frustration, but in that moment, I made a conscious choice to do something different. I took a deep breath and reached out to pet my dog instead. It felt strange, as if I was suppressing my emotions, but in truth, I was teaching my brain a new lesson. That not every disruption requires an angry reaction. I repeated this choice again and again every time my dog did something that would have previously irritated me. Over time, something amazing happened. My natural reaction changed. The tension in my chest faded. I no longer had to fight my anger because my mind had been reconditioned. My brain had learned that these events weren't threats. They didn't require rage. Neuroplasticity reveals that we are not destined to be slaves to our emotions. We can redirect our impulses and allow calmness to become our default state. Every time we choose not to respond with anger, we strengthen the mental wiring of patience and composure. The more we practice this, the more automatic it becomes. Marcus Aurelius once said that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. This isn't just a philosophical ideal, it's a scientific truth. The brain adapts based on what we consistently practice. If we make serenity our habit, it eventually becomes our default response. This transformation isn't immediate. At first, the mind will fight to return to its familiar patterns. But if we persist, if every time we feel the surge of anger, we pause, breathe, and choose a new response, we will experience genuine change. One day you'll notice that situations which once made you furious now seem trivial. And it's not because you're bottling your feelings, it's because your brain no longer sees those situations as deserving of anger. Anger is a habit, just as calmness is. If we feed it, anger will grow stronger. But if we ignore it and instead nourish serenity, anger will weaken and eventually disappear. This isn't about pretending or suppressing how we feel. It's about retraining the mind to operate in a way that serves us, not sabotages us. If we want to become calmer, more centered, and wiser in our responses, we must commit to practicing this mindset every single day. With repetition, calmness will no longer require effort. It will simply be who we are. Love and gratitude have the power to overcome anger. Anger is a draining emotion. It wears us down and robs us of control over our minds. But two forces can dissolve it: love and gratitude. When we are caught in the grip of anger, our focus is locked on negativity, on what's wrong, on what annoys us, on what we think is unjust. But when we shift our attention to what we love and what we're grateful for, anger loses its strength. Not because the problems vanish, but because we stop feeding them with our energy. Love reconnects us with what truly matters. If we're angry with someone, we can ask ourselves, do I want to win this argument or preserve the relationship? When we truly love someone, being right becomes less important. Anger, at its core, is selfish. It seeks vengeance, validation. But love strives for understanding, for healing, for connection. Too often, we let anger guide our actions in petty conflicts, hurting those we care about most in the process. But in those moments, if we pause and remember our love for that person, everything changes. Our response shifts, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. Gratitude is another potent antidote. When we are truly grateful, anger cannot coexist. Resentment and thankfulness cannot fill the same space. If something upsets us, we can stop and do a simple exercise. Think of 3 things we are grateful for in that moment. It could be our health, a meaningful relationship, or the lesson hidden in the difficulty. This simple act redirects our thoughts, moving us out of a reactive state and restoring our sense of control. Marcus Aurelius reflected in his meditations on the fleeting nature of life. If today were your last day with someone you love, would you really waste it being angry? Gratitude reminds us that every moment is sacred and that anger only drains the time we can never get back. Years ago, I tried an experiment on myself. Every time I felt anger or frustration, instead of reacting as I normally would, I forced myself to think of something I was grateful for. At first, it felt unnatural, like I was avoiding reality, but eventually, something shifted. My brain started doing it automatically. One day, someone spoke to me with blatant disrespect, and instead of getting upset, my first thought was, I'm grateful to be healthy and to have the strength to keep going. That thought calmed me. It allowed me to respond with grace, not because the other person deserved kindness, but because I deserved peace. The Stoics understood that our emotions are not dictated by external events, but by how we choose to interpret them. If we dwell on what's wrong, on what we lack, anger grows. But if we focus on what we have, what we cherish, and what we're thankful for, anger diminishes. This isn't denial, it's mental training. It's a choice to see the world from a higher perspective. Epictetus once said the secret to happiness lies not in having more, but in wanting less. Gratitude helps us realize that we already have enough, that peace is possible even in the presence of setbacks. We can't always avoid tense moments or control how others behave, but we can decide what emotional environment we want to create in our minds. If we choose love and gratitude, anger will have no room to grow. When we lead with love, we seek to understand. When we lead with gratitude, we learn to let go. Through this daily practice, we become calmer, more focused, and less reactive. Not because the world changes, but because we've learned to see it differently. Establishing healthy boundaries is essential. When you don't set clear limits, you're allowing others to determine how they treat you. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being confrontational or rejecting people. It means clearly defining where your patience, time, and energy begin and end. When boundaries are missing, you unintentionally send the message that it's acceptable to be disrespected, to have your time disregarded, or your presence taken for granted. And when this continues, frustration builds, anger festers, and emotional burnout sets in. But setting boundaries is your responsibility. It's not up to others. You alone have the power to decide what behavior you accept and what you don't. Often, we allow certain behaviors to persist because we fear being labeled as selfish or unpleasant. Saying no feels uncomfortable because we worry about offending others or being rejected. Yet the true issue is not the act of saying no, but failing to say it when necessary. If someone constantly interrupts you at work, if a friend only contacts you when they need something, or if a family member criticizes you without cause, it's your responsibility to decide whether or not you'll accept that. Seneca once said that while we cannot control how others behave, we can control how we respond. When we tolerate inappropriate behavior without addressing it, we're effectively giving permission for it to continue. When someone crosses a line and we fail to enforce a boundary, we reinforce the very behavior that hurts us. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to mutual respect. They are not about pushing people away, but about protecting your peace and preserving your energy. Setting them may feel difficult at first, but they are acts of self-love and emotional maturity. But when you calmly and confidently express that you do not accept such treatment, you send a strong message that you value yourself enough not to tolerate disrespect. You don't need to be aggressive or argumentative. You only need to be clear. Saying something like, "I won't accept these types of comments," or "My time matters, please respect it," or "I don't feel comfortable with that," are simple yet powerful phrases that can completely transform the tone of a relationship. I recall a period in my life when I constantly allowed myself to be interrupted regardless of what I was doing. If someone needed my attention, I would immediately stop and respond. Initially, I thought that made me a kind and helpful person. But as time went on, I came to realize that all I was doing was allowing others to place their priorities above mine. I often felt drained and frustrated, but it wasn't truly anyone else's fault. I had never established any boundaries. Eventually, I made a decision to change. The next time someone interrupted me, I simply responded, "I'm busy right now, let's talk later." At first it was difficult, but gradually people began to understand that my time mattered too. The most surprising part, I didn't lose any important relationships. In fact, I started to feel more respected. The Stoics understood that setting boundaries isn't an act of rejection, It's an act of self-respect. Epictetus taught that we must choose what lies within our control and what doesn't. We can't prevent others from attempting to cross our limits, but we can decide how we respond. If someone mistreats you and you remain silent, you're not practicing virtue. You're failing in your responsibility to protect your own well-being. Saying no is a courageous act, not because it's easy, but because it reflects that you honor and respect yourself. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. On the contrary, it helps build healthier relationships where both sides clearly understand what is acceptable. Often, people don't even realize they're crossing a line until you point it out. You can't expect others to guess what bothers you. You must tell them. And if, after you've expressed your needs, they continue to disregard them, then you have to consider whether you truly want that person in your life. Each time you choose not to set a boundary out of fear of conflict, you are accepting inner turmoil just to avoid external discomfort. You are willingly sacrificing your own peace just to dodge a difficult conversation. But avoiding the issue doesn't solve it. Learning to say no without guilt is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It's not about being stronger than others. It's about becoming stronger within yourself. Setting boundaries is not about controlling others. It's about preserving your peace and living with self-respect. Not everything deserves your attention. Each day we face provocations, minor problems, and careless remarks that try to pull us into chaos. But most of these things hold little to no real importance. We end up exhausting ourselves emotionally by reacting to what is trivial, things that will be forgotten by tomorrow. We live in a world where opinions are constantly thrown around, where criticism is common, and where small issues can seem large if we don't learn to filter what actually matters. The key to maintaining inner peace is learning that not everything happening around you deserves your energy. When something bothers you, pause and ask yourself, will this matter in a month, in a year? Most of the time, the answer will be no. Still, we often allow ourselves to be swept up in the moment, feeling compelled to respond, to defend, to react. But if we zoom out and look at life as a whole, we realize many of these things are mere distractions. Marcus Aurelius said that tranquility comes from ignoring what doesn't concern us. If someone insults you on the street, does it truly change anything in your life? If a stranger online criticizes you, does that have any real impact on who you are? Wasting energy on every small provocation only pulls us away from what truly matters. Imagine someone makes a rude comment about you. Your instinct might be to defend yourself, to prove your point. But what do you actually gain from doing so? It's unwise to invest your energy into a conflict that doesn't add value. A comment doesn't define your worth. A criticism doesn't determine your identity. If every time someone says something negative about you, you hand over your peace, you're giving emotional power to anyone who chooses to provoke you. Epictetus reminded us not to become prisoners of others' opinions. If something doesn't help you grow or meaningfully impact your life, then it likely doesn't deserve your attention. Many of the worries we carry are not even ours to begin with. We stress over what others think, over problems we can't control, over expectations that don't belong to us. We spend too much time seeking approval, worrying about what people might say, and focusing on situations that don't even affect our true selves. But when you finally understand that your energy is finite, you become more selective about what deserves your focus. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent. It means knowing how to distinguish between what truly matters and what is just noise. I remember a time when any form of criticism deeply affected me. If someone questioned my actions, I felt an urgent need to explain, to justify, to prove myself. But with time, I learned that this was a waste of energy. I began to observe before reacting, to ask myself whether the situation was truly worth it. Most of the time, I found that the best response was silence, not because I had nothing to say, but because nothing needed to be said. Not everything requires a reaction. Not every issue deserves a confrontation. Not every comment is worth your attention. Each time you choose to ignore what is irrelevant, you're protecting your inner peace. You're teaching your mind to focus on what truly matters, what helps you grow, what transforms you. The Stoics didn't aim to control the world. They aimed to master their response to it. If someone acts with hostility or attempts to provoke you, remember, you always have the power to choose whether or not to respond. Strength isn't about winning every argument. It's about choosing the battles that are actually worth engaging in. When you begin filtering what truly matters, many of your worries will naturally fade away. The energy you once spent on meaningless conflicts can now be invested in building, learning, and becoming better. You can't stop people from criticizing you. You can't control what others say or do, but you can always choose whether it's worth letting their actions affect your state of mind. In the end, true freedom is not doing whatever you want. It's refusing to be ruled by what doesn't matter. Many times, our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens, but from what we believe those events mean. We get trapped in the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, about others, about what things mean. But those stories are often not grounded in facts. They are merely beliefs we've accepted without questioning, and these beliefs can become the biggest barrier to our peace of mind. The Stoics taught that inner peace comes from being able to separate facts from our interpretations. When we don't make that distinction, we get overwhelmed by unnecessary emotions, anger, sadness, fear, because we're reacting not to reality, but to our thoughts about it. If someone tells you that you're worthless, it isn't the words themselves that hurt. It's the meaning you assign to them. The actual fact is just that a person said something, but the moment we internalize it, the moment we start thinking, maybe they're right, those words transform into a belief that burdens us for years, and yet we rarely stop to ask whether that belief is even true. We just absorb it. Epictetus warned us, it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our interpretation of those events. If someone criticizes you, you have a choice, to see it as an attack or to see it as an opportunity to improve. The difference lies not in what was said, but in what you choose to believe. The human mind is skilled at crafting narratives. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, that we don't deserve happiness, that we'll never change, and we treat these thoughts as if they're absolute truths. But where do these beliefs come from? Often, they come from past experiences, from what others once said, from old failures that we've turned into permanent identities. If we once failed, we tell ourselves we are failures. If someone rejected us, we believe we are unworthy of love. But these thoughts are not absolute truths. They are merely beliefs we've built over time, often without even realizing it. I remember a period in my life when I believed I wasn't intelligent enough to achieve certain goals. There was no solid proof behind this belief, only a memory of someone making me feel inadequate, and I chose to accept that feeling as fact. Every time I encountered a difficult challenge, that belief would resurface. You can't do this. You're not capable. But one day, I decided to question that voice. Where was the real evidence that I was incapable? Hadn't I learned countless things throughout my life? Hadn't I overcome other challenges before? That's when it dawned on me. This belief wasn't a fact. It was simply a narrative I kept repeating to myself. And once I understood that, I began to let it go. Letting go wasn't something that happened all at once. But each time I confronted a limiting thought, I felt a sense of empowerment returning. The Stoics practiced this kind of mental discipline. They developed the ability to examine their own thoughts and discern which ones deserved their attention. They didn't blindly accept every emotion or idea. Marcus Aurelius advised us to challenge every negative thought. Is this true? Is it really as terrible as it seems? More often than not, the answer is no. We are not as limited as we believe. We are not the labels others assign to us. We don't have to live as prisoners of these internal narratives. But to free ourselves, we first have to recognize that our beliefs are not unchangeable facts. Each time a belief about yourself feels like a limitation, ask whether it's truly based on evidence or if it's something you've accepted without questioning. If you can replace it with a belief that reflects reality more accurately, you've already taken a significant step toward emotional liberation. The act of separating fact from belief is how we break free from the mental cages we've built. It's how we stop reacting on autopilot and begin to live with real clarity. When we see the world without the distortions created by our unexamined beliefs, we uncover a sense of peace that has always existed within us, just waiting to be noticed. Creating a healthy self-image is essential. Your view of yourself should never hinge on other people's opinions. If you live through the eyes of others, you'll constantly be chasing approval, and that's a kind of emotional captivity. One day you'll feel unstoppable because someone complimented you, and the next day a simple criticism will make you crumble. That kind of instability stems from building your sense of worth on things you can't control. But when your self-worth comes from self-awareness and acceptance, no one can take your peace away. The Stoics understood that true strength is born from within. They believed that only when we stop relying on external validation can we begin to experience true freedom. The real issue arises when our self-image is shaped by beliefs that were imposed on us during childhood. We absorb opinions, labels, and judgments from others, often without ever questioning them. If someone called us shy, we believed it. If we were labeled failures, we internalized it. But how much of that is genuinely accurate? How much of who we think we are is based on ideas we never stop to examine? Marcus Aurelius reminded us to ask whether the things we believe about ourselves are genuinely true, or just stories we keep repeating in our minds. The key lies in self-knowledge, observing ourselves without filters, illusions, or self-deception. It means recognizing our strengths and weaknesses, not to feel complacent, but to be honest with ourselves. When someone criticizes you, the natural instinct is to defend yourself, to feel hurt, or to try to prove them wrong. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused and reflected? If someone accuses you of being selfish rather than responding with anger, ask yourself, is this true? Do I really act that way? If the answer is yes, then you've been given an opportunity to grow. If the answer is no, then the criticism holds no weight, and you can move on without being affected. Epictetus taught that we shouldn't worry about what people say about us, only whether what they say is true. It's not the criticism itself that hurts us, but our interpretation of it. If your self-image is rooted in truth and strength, the words of others lose their power. For years, I struggled with trying to fit in, striving to be accepted based on how others perceived me. I tried to meet their expectations, molding myself into what I thought they wanted, but all it did was pull me further away from who I truly was. I made decisions based not on my desires, but on what I believed would gain approval. That constant effort to please left me exhausted, because it was never enough. There was always another opinion to satisfy, another standard to meet. Everything changed when I finally realized I could never control what others thought of me. I stopped trying to belong in spaces that didn't reflect my truth, and began asking myself, who am I really? What do I want for my life? As I explored these questions, the need for external validation gradually disappeared. Self-acceptance doesn't mean giving up or settling for less. It's not about resigning yourself to who you are without striving to grow. It's about recognizing your intrinsic worth, independent of outside influences. When you fully accept who you are, flaws and all, successes and failures, you free yourself from the fear of judgment. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer seek affirmation because you already know your value. And the most empowering part is this: when you stop chasing approval, you become more authentic. The people who truly matter will respect you for being yourself, not for who you pretend to be. Emotional freedom begins when you stop living according to other people's expectations and start living in alignment with your own truth. This doesn't mean ignoring every external opinion. It means learning to discern what truly matters. If you know who you are, if you're clear about your values and purpose, criticism loses its power over you. You begin to live with confidence and calm, no longer driven by the need to impress anyone. Not because you're perfect, but because you no longer require the world's validation to feel worthy. And in that clarity, you discover a peace that's always been within you. The idea of good and bad people is a false dichotomy. No one is entirely good or entirely bad. Every human being is a complex mix of strengths and flaws, moments of wisdom and episodes of weakness. But our minds have a tendency to simplify. We label people to make sense of them, to categorize them based on how they make us feel or how they behave in specific situations. This habit of labeling is not only inaccurate, but it also blinds us to the full reality of a person's character. When we reduce someone to a single label, we lose the ability to see them clearly. A person's actions may be generous or selfish, kind or unfair, but these behaviors do not define the whole of who they are. Someone who acts cruelly today may show incredible compassion tomorrow. A person who has made serious mistakes may also do immense good. Marcus Aurelius urged us to see people for what they truly are, fallible human beings shaped by their experiences, their fears, and their past. No one is entirely one thing. No one should be judged solely by their best or worst moment. Understanding this can help free us from the emotional burden of judgment. When someone hurts us, our first reaction is to label them as cruel or unjust and to wish for retribution. But how often do we pause to consider what may have driven their behavior? This isn't about excusing harm, but about recognizing that most people don't act out of pure malice. They act from confusion, fear, or pain. Epictetus taught that people act based on the limits of their knowledge and understanding. Someone who disrespects others might simply not know any better way to interact. Someone who betrays might be acting out of a lifelong fear of abandonment. That doesn't mean we have to accept being treated poorly, but it does mean we don't have to take it personally. People respond to their environments, their upbringing, and the emotional tools they've been given. A person can be loving to their family and ruthless in their career. They can be kind to friends and indifferent to strangers. These contradictions don't make them evil, they make them human. We've all had moments we regret, times we've spoken out of anger, acted selfishly, or made choices we wish we could take back. If we want to be understood and forgiven for those moments, then we must offer that same understanding to others. When we stop labeling people as simply good or bad, our relationships improve. We become less reactive, less frustrated with the flaws of others, because we understand that everyone is walking their own path of growth. We become more patient, more balanced. And no, this doesn't mean tolerating abuse or mistreatment. It means seeing others as they truly are, complex, evolving, and human. Marcus Aurelius once said that when someone behaves poorly, we should ask ourselves, did we truly expect anything different? People act in accordance with what they've learned and with the limitations of their own minds. If we expect perfection from others, we will constantly find ourselves disappointed. Letting go of that expectation frees us. It liberates our hearts from the need to punish, from bitterness, from the urge to divide the world into allies and enemies. We grow in objectivity, serenity, and the ability to deal with conflict with a clear mind. True strength doesn't lie in harsh judgment of others, but in understanding that all of us are on the same path, just at different points. We are each here to learn, to grow, and to evolve. Once you understand this deeply, you stop exhausting yourself over the actions of others and begin to focus on the only thing you truly have control over, your own inner development. Now we arrive at evolution number 15, the Ren process for managing anger. Anger is a powerful emotion. It can feel like an unstoppable fire when it surges within us, but anger does not have to dominate you. If handled wisely, it can be transformed from a destructive force into a catalyst for growth. The RIN process is a method that helps you work with your anger mindfully. Rather than suppressing it or lashing out impulsively, you use the energy of anger in a conscious, reflective way. This approach aligns closely with how the Stoics lived, even though they didn't give it a formal name. Through this process, we learn to observe our anger without becoming consumed by it. We begin to understand where it comes from and how to channel it in a healthy direction. The first step is simply to acknowledge that anger is present. Don't deny it. Don't bury it. Recognize it. Often we react in anger automatically, almost as if on autopilot. We let the emotion take over without stopping to notice what's truly going on inside us. But if, in the moment of anger, you can pause and say, "I'm feeling angry right now," you create a crucial distance between yourself and the emotion. Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of observing our emotions as if they were external forces. When you learn to see your anger not as your identity, but as a fleeting emotional state, you've already begun to gain power over it. The second step is to allow the anger to exist without acting on it. This is where many stumble. The instinct to react, to defend, to attack, to explode is often overwhelming. But the emotion itself is not the problem. The problem is what we do with it. The Stoics taught that emotions should not be denied, but lived through with awareness. If you feel the anger building, don't resist it. Just observe it. Stay present. Breathe. Notice the energy in your body, but remain conscious. Seneca wisely said that the initial shock of anger is unavoidable, but everything after that is your choice. If you can stay with the emotion without letting it drive your behavior, you are already ahead. The third step involves looking deeper into the root of the anger. Instead of remaining stuck at the surface, ask yourself what is really behind the emotion. Often, anger is not the core issue. It's a signal pointing to something more profound. It may be fear, insecurity, disappointment, or unresolved pain. Epictetus reminded us that it's not the events themselves that upset us, but our interpretations of them. If someone interrupts you during a conversation and you feel a flash of anger, maybe it's not the interruption itself, but the belief that you are being disrespected or undervalued. Once you uncover the real issue beneath the anger, its intensity fades because you realize it has more to do with your internal world than the external event. The final step is to nourish the part of you that needs healing. Rather than criticizing yourself for feeling anger, practice self-compassion. This doesn't mean you're justifying your anger. It means you're honoring the emotional wound that triggered it. Maybe you've been suppressing certain feelings. Maybe there's an old belief shaping how you react. Or maybe you just need to give yourself the space to feel and process. Marcus Aurelius taught that we should treat ourselves with the same patience and compassion we extend to others. You may not be able to eliminate anger entirely, but you can absolutely choose how to respond to it. With wisdom and self-awareness, you stop being a prisoner to your emotions. As you practice this process, you'll find that anger loses its grip on you. This doesn't mean you'll never feel it again, but when you do, you'll know how to handle it without sacrificing your peace or damaging your relationships. You'll come to understand that anger is just an emotion, a temporary wave, not a command you must obey. Instead of reacting, you will respond with reflection. And in that space between feeling and action, you will discover true emotional freedom. If this message speaks to you, head to the comments and write, "Today, my best version begins. I am Stoic." By doing this, you affirm your intention to live with greater calm, wisdom, and discipline. Don't let your emotions rule your life. Master them and take control of your destiny. See you in the next one.